Hey folks, what's going on? This episode of a yet to be named show, I have no idea what to call this thing, um, is brought to you by, well, first off, the greatest drink in the history of the world, Iron Brew. Good stuff. And second off, we're brought to you by Naturebox. If you're looking for healthy snacks or nutritious snack options, you got to go with Naturebox. You go to naturebox.com and you use the coupon code 129 capital F dash capital Y capital W capital U. That code will be in the description box below. You use that code, you will save $10 off of your first box. Also, if you use that code, I'll also get a $10 credit towards the podcast. Basically, you're helping the podcast out. So, there you go. That code you use in the coupon code area at checkout. Snack healthy, snack smart, Naturebox. And with that being said, without further ado, let's start the show.
There goes the neighborhood. What do we think? It's good. Yeah, how you doing? And it's man. So, oh, no, then I heard about this and the real millionaire. I was telling a friend about this today and just saying how money can just persuade people for all the wrong reasons. Oh, well, the last I heard, it was down to 48%. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was incredible. And they actually did a poll recently. I think it was last week, in fact. And the poll said that if they were to hold the referendum now again, 50, I think it was 52% would have voted yes, because unfortunately, due to the political class of Westminster, the Scottish people have been sold a lie. They've been totally sold a lie. the promises that were made to the Scottish people have so far not been carried through. We're now got an attitude that the current regime in power down in Westminster have turned around and said, well, you might get your requests, but the English will be getting it as well, which I've got to take with a pinch of salt, and I've got to be very sceptical about it and say, well, that's virtually saying never. However, another thing to think if they think they're going to get away with that, because they're not dealing with people that openly accept failure in that way when they're dealing with the Scottish. We have had our uprisings before. We had our uprisings with the Thatcherite poll tax back in the late 80s. It originated, I think, from Glasgow. And it, I think it will happen again. And I do realistically think that there will be another referendum, perhaps in a decade's time, because it's not so kip. Idiot. You. Oh God. My number one hated. Oh, yeah. No, Todd is more British than what David Cameron is, for sure. That guy does not represent Britain. That guy represents corporations, and this has to be the most corrupt government in living memory. Even my own father says that. He just can't believe how much corrupt and vile they really are. I mean, nobody voted for them. They were unelected, and they've just enforced such draconian measures. People are committed. Oh, totally. They this hold on to the old colonials times. You know, I, I think it's time for Blighty to put down its arms and, menacing arm, fist, and just say, right, we've had a good running. Enough's enough. Time to settle down and look after our own. Look after our old people that are not necessarily able to heat their homes because gas bills are through the roof, especially more so now when they've got the Cold War rhetoric kicking off yet again. That is utterly pathetic. Uh, millipede, millipede and the Balearites. That a name for a band? Interesting band that would be. Well, Boris Johnson's a very useful tool because he's a lovable rogue. Um, you know, you have to see through that in order to realise that he's Tory through and through, uh, and he's not this lovable guy. He's the guy that's allowed, as you've probably seen on Brand's channel, Russell Brand's channel. He's the guy that's allowed social housing near the former Olympics ground to be sold off to the private sector, in which you've got women that have been in previous relationships where they've been battered or they've been abused, and they've been living in hostels, for wrecked marriages and relationships and stuff, and they've been told, I'm sorry, you can't live in the borough of London no more. We can give you a house, but you've got to move all the way up the road to Birmingham, or even further north to Manchester, which is hundreds of miles away from their families, away from the life that they've grown up from, because they basically want to socially cleanse the housing. Now, I will give Boris his dues. He did warn about this when the Tories first started kicking in this ideology when they first got made into Parliament 4.5 years ago. But equally, he's as guilty as the regime for causing this crisis. And, I really feel for these women, because it's awful to be told the place that you live in all your life, that you've got friends around, that the family, you've went to school there, you've maybe even studied further education, etc. And you've started your own family there. Your kids are settled in nursery, or it's primary school, whatever. And you're told just to up and leave and move on. I mean, we had that going on in World War II, but we had that going on for a very legitimate reason, and it was to do with the Jewish. They were getting ethnically cleansed in the mainland of Europe. This shouldn't be a thing that should be going on in 2014, where they're effectively knocking down social housing to build penthouses and banker wanker apartments, etc., for the rich elite. They're basically, let I say, social cleansing the borough of London. London is not a good place to go if you're on minimum wage, low wages, not even minimum wage now. But if you're on a lower wage, you're on a lower spectrum of the employment system. London's a no-go area, But the far right, of course, are naturally saying that this is all due to Johnny Foreigner coming over and yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that episode. Yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah. And they use the word "about" instead. What you want to about? So, oh yeah. I mean, I didn't. When he was on television, he used to present. I think it was Big Brother. Quite a few years ago, and I had no time for him. I just thought he was pompous hairdo. That's what I always thought about him. And then somebody led me to watch The Trues, and I watched one of his episodes. And it was just Bill O'Reilly. Yeah, what can you say about that? I just think it's gonna be really fun. And it's just, he had me in stitches because he kind of adds the comedy factor to it. But a lot, I'm not saying he's 100% right. Of course, he's not 100% right. But a lot of the stuff that he actually says it makes a lot of sense, and he is actually, doing a good job because he's captivating a lot of people through his comedy genius. To actually be interested in what's going on around the country and, for that matter, around the world. People are learning about the biased nonsense that Fox News brings to the masses. In fact, was there not a study that was brought out that I think I posted it actually on my Facebook quite a while ago. There was a study, in fact, there's been a number of studies that are brought out that saying that watching Fox News actually makes you more stupider and, well, more stupid. And I can actually believe that, you know. I have been known to just watch it just to study what is the mentality of the likes of Sean Hannity. I haven't actually watched the full-blown programme of Bill O'Reilly. I don't think I could stomach it. I could barely stomach Hannity. And there's very little truth in the situation. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of Islamophobic slurs. There's a rather unhealthy creeping alliance to the Zionist Israeli state that I really don't like, including special programs where he meets up with the Prime Minister of Israel, but doesn't talk about. He talks about it from one side and doesn't talk about exactly what plight goes on the other side with the Palestinian people, which, you know, I find it kind of disgusting because, you know, a lot of, I think, to be honest, you know, there will be a certain percentage of Fox News that's true, but the majority of that percentage would be the sports news because they can't really lie about that, and the occasional science story, because the rest of it's just fabricated nonsense. And I think it's a case of it that they're already preaching to the converted anyhow, and we know who they're following are. It's kind of like a reassurance for the right wingers. It's just they must just sit and watch and think, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah, man, Sean, you're totally right. You know, etc. And it's just like, Judge. Hi, McKendall. I'm Sean Hannity. Skinny. Oh, Glenn. Yeah. War, supply weapons to the moderate rebels, bloody, blah. Well, talking about that, you know, I'm not going to change the subject or interrupt, but did you not hear the recent thing that those so-called moderate rebels have actually been supplied weapons, have actually given themselves up to Al-Qaeda, which is Al-Nusra, which is AKA that other one that they tried to make up a name. What was it, Jabhat or something like that? No, Al-Nusra. They had another one, Karashi or something like that they were trying to come out with. And they were trying to make it out to be another new terrorist group that were far more dangerous than ISIL. And it actually turned out that what they are is the Wolf Brigade of Al-Nusra, Jabhat al-Nusra. And it's just like, whoa, wait a minute. But yeah, these guys have recently given up and surrendered to Al-Qaeda. So Al-Qaeda, aka Al-Nusra, have got American weapons. Well done. Score. Shocking. But yeah, back to Brand, yeah. I think the civil war in Syria. Yeah. Was she a real judge, or was she a bit like that recent doctor that called for an American jihad that I'm sure doesn't even... Yeah, my suspicions are equal when it comes to that kind of thing. Yeah, let's just nuke them. I find it incredible that they think that that's going to solve things, because I mean that's what has got us into this fine mess in the first place. And their nominated now ex-Prime Minister Malachi, I think I'm pronouncing his name right. I mean, they feared of this kind of thing happening, so what they did was come down military-wise upon protesters and gun them down. There was an incident that happened where there was a big protest camp that had been there for at least a month or 2 months. I can't remember what area of Iraq it was. But basically they fueled the fire because they went and gunned down all these protesters, which gave a good excuse for ISIL to turn around and say, look what your protests do. Absolutely nothing. Your brothers are ending up getting killed. Come and join us and take up arms. Let us form the Islamic, or in their eyes, Islamic Caliphate, and then we can take over and, restore Islamic traditions to, Iraq and Syria, which is utter nonsense, because what they're doing is the usual story. They're using religion for their own evil ideologies. Because what we're dealing with here are Salafists that, one way or the other are being funded by very rich people in Saudi Arabia and Qatar and what have you. And we're not addressing that issue. We're kind of very carefully sweeping that underneath the carpet and going, shh, we're not going to say anything about that. Whereas they need to address that issue. Whether or not the Saudi fake royal family are directly involved in it, that I don't know. But there's certainly some very rich people and influential people within the military and within some form of establishment within those countries that are helping fund this. There was also, there was a very interesting thing on one of the alternative media channels. There's a documentary about Meet ISIL done by Press TV, and they had documentation allegedly from the Saudi prison services in which hundreds of foreign nationals and a few Saudis were released, and their condition was that you can be released. We will release you from being axe murderers and drug users and all kinds of things that they'd been committed into prison under Sharia law. We will release you. We will pay your family vast amounts of money as long as you go and in jihad in Syria. Also, because they want the Ba'athist Assad regime to, be, to collapse entirely. And it's barely hanging by a thin line of string anyhow, as it is. But these people sent over, and naturally some of them have gone and joined Al Nusra Front or affiliated with that group, Al Qaeda, and also the Islamic State. not. The Islamic State are very clever people. Very clever people. They're absolute psychopaths. There's a method to their madness, and the method to their madness is the very clever propaganda that they put out. I'm sure you've seen some of the videos, like for instance, the likes of Flames of War. Have you seen that? That they really. Well, I mean, there's a lot of very interesting techniques used because it's very reminiscent computer games like for the Xbox or PlayStation, the likes of that. So it's to entice that sort of disfranchised, angry youth from around the world. They think they're a part of something, especially when they've put their so-called caliph, Mr. Bashar himself, in a mosque reading a sermon in a mosque that, only a few months before that had American troops all around it. That must be painful for the Obama administration and any of that lot to see. But equally, it's been used as a very, very clever tool because these disenfranchised idiotic youth are seeing something and they think, oh, we can be a part of this, we can be a part of history. Let us go over there, let us do this, let's be with our brothers and stuff like that. And as soon as they're over there, that's it. They're completely brainwashed. They're also very clever at their propaganda tools being used with the youth within both Syria and Iraq, in which they're really brainwashing the children into real hatred of anything that isn't their cause. I mean, because they will kill anyone. They will kill anyone. I think what a lot of people fail to recognise is they're not just going about killing Yazidis, Christians. They're going about killing Muslims as well that don't agree with them, that dare to question them. Army officials as well. We've seen the hundreds of Iraq army and Syrian armies just literally been lined up. Something that's reminiscent of the Nazis in World War II, where they're all lined up and then bang, 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 and they're all put in the ground. And it's unbelievable what they're doing. And what's even more unbelievable is the fact that there was no warning signs. I don't believe that for one moment. Managed to do that. They are doing things that only Osama bin Laden could dream of.
Right.
Without a doubt, this is a wet dream of Osama bin Laden.
Even look back. And for me, and just the stuff I've been reading, if we didn't go into Iraq in the first place, I don't think any of this would have happened.
Well, yeah, it's exactly the same case when it comes to Libya.
Yeah.
Because Libya is the next one to go off. The media have been very quiet about Libya, but Libya is still burning.
Right.
Libya's lawless hell pit. And every so often it creeps into the likes of Tunisia, Algeria to a certain extent. However, Algeria, I think, can look after itself. Algeria is very, very resilient country, although it does have its problems. Because I know a lot of Algerians and they're really lovely, lovely people. So I think it can look after itself. But you're getting the rise in the Salafists within Tunisia and Morocco in general. That's another ticking time bomb. I hope it doesn't go that way. But Libya is an absolute disgrace. Libya is an absolute disgrace. And there's still that big question of what happened to Colonel Gaddafi's stockpile of weapons. I don't know if they've surfaced yet. I've not heard any reports of them surfing, surfing up in, turning up in the likes of Egypt or whatever. I did see one video of some crazy so-called Libyan rebel firing an RPG at an Egyptian helicopter and blowing that up. That was a few months back.
Right.
I've not really heard too much, but the Egyptians are another problem as well. They've got another dictator through Sisi, a vile individual.
Well, it kind of goes back. It kind of goes back to the. What's the guy's name? Guys like Howard Zinn, guys like Noam Chomsky have said this for years, where you can't spread. I think it was Chomsky that said it, or it might have been Zinn, but it was probably Zinn. But yeah, we'll just say it was Zinn, where he said you can't take democracy and force it onto other countries who have no idea what it is, and then the whole spreading democracy thing. I think it was Chomsky even said it best. Spreading democracy is a new word for imperialism.
Oh yeah, totally.
And it's.
I mean, it breaks my heart to see the way Syria is now, and I know it's not all ISIL, but
right.
I mean, there was a series on television, funnily enough, on the Blair Bush Corporation, aka the BBC,
right,
a few years ago, called Syrian School. I think it was like a 3 or 4 part series. It was very interesting because it showed you education within Syria, and it was very secular back then. There were children wandering around. They didn't even have headscarves on. They certainly didn't have burqas, any of that nonsense going on. They were all very, happy, children. I've met many Syrian people as well, and they're lovely people. They're very reminiscent of Persians to me.
Right.
Who are not, another set of really lovely people. Yeah, there was some strange things under the Assad regime. Like, they have a thing that's very similar. I think it's actually taken from North Korea, where you go into this amphitheater and it goes around this whole model recreation of the 6-day war, and it's drummed into you. You've got to hate the Israelis, the Jews, blah blah blah. So it's drummed into them that way, and they have holiday camps where the children go off and do some. It'd be the equivalent of our scouts and all that, where they go through a lot of activities and things like that. But by no means was it a country that was shut up, shut to the world. It was, back then it was very easy to even get there, even as a British citizen. Funnily enough, I was invited over there. I wouldn't have taken it up, but I was invited to someone's house there and to stay with their family and what have you. It would have been very interesting. But I'm invited to quite many places that I would love to go to, but due to climates,
right,
it's perhaps not suggestible for me as a Westerner to be over there. But it breaks my heart to see what the likes of Aleppo looks like now, where it's just ghost town of corridors and corridors of streets with blown up buildings and no windows, and rusted, well, not even rusted out cars, just blown up cars, and just absolute carnage, as if a nuke's gone off and just blown the entire place up.
Right.
It really does break my heart to see that. It's the same when it comes to Iraq, because I know they were under a dictator as well, but Iraq was very secular as well. I know that from a very good friend that I knew for a brief time, who was half Russian, half Iraqi. She told me a lot, because our mum was from Iraq, and she was a Saddam supporter. Each to their own. That's fine.
Right.
They had a very good arts system going on over there, where they encouraged art students, musicians, artists, writers, the lot, to go and study in Western universities and bring back their knowledge, and you were treated well as being a musician and an artist, and that's not propaganda. That's fact.
Right.
There was also, although it wasn't perhaps
acceptable for it to be promoted on the outside in terms of what was going on within the streets and all that. You could be gay and could go to bars for that particular thing. There was alcohol.
Right.
There was all that kind of thing going on. Now, there was very strange things, like in the Kurdish regions of Iraq, a specific time when the flag got lowered down, everyone had to stop. Even the people driving their cars along the street, as soon as they heard that bugle going off, they all had to stop and obey the flag going down. And God bless Saddam and all this. Yeah, you got reminiscent things of like North Korea,
right,
going on there. Yeah, I understand that, but look at the way it is now. You've had a war. You've had money basically been robbed by corporations and companies. I mean, what happened to the billions that were put into Iraq? The hospitals certainly didn't get what they needed. There's children that need particular things that, like IV line drip things. I can't remember the full medical term for them, but these hospitals don't have basic necessities like that. What happened to all this money? I do understand that some of the money was blown on, inverted commas, big projects, as in showpiece projects, to say, yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that, and all that. But the money wasn't used properly. And there was also things going on that was blatant fraud, like American companies and Western companies maybe giving things like to freight loading vehicle things, to put boxes, crate loader things. They were maybe hiring them out for $15,000 or $20,000 a week, and it turned out that these things were already in surplus. They were Iraqi, and all they did was put a paint job on them and said that this was coming from an American company. So there was these kind of frauds, fraudulent behaviour going on that squandered all that money, and we're in a situation now where Iraq is virtually third world. No wonder they've got this problem going on, because when you've got disenfranchised youth and virtually no employment, you're going to have lawlessness. When you've got a real tyrannical government cracking down on Sunnis or Shias, depending on what government's in power religious-wise, and they're cracking down on the opposite side, sectarian side, then naturally it's going to be a breeding ground for complete and utter terrorism. But how the Americans and the British could have thought when they left that day in Iraq, we've done our job, mission completed, and walk with our backs to all that, it'll never cease to believe, amaze me that no one adhered to these warnings. But surely Obama must have realised.
I think a lot of that is, let's face it, it doesn't even matter what party it is anymore.
Oh, no,
it's there was a book. Actually picked up a copy of it and put it aside, because when Russell Brand's Revolution, when I got my hands on that one, I go, okay, I've got to concentrate on this one, because there's quite a bit of a waiting list, and I was lucky enough to be on there, when it was still being ordered. But there's a book by a guy named Lawrence Lessig, and he's been on. He's talked a lot to Young Turks quite a bit, and they actually kind of inspired them to start their own thing that we'll talk about in a bit. But Lessig wrote a book called Republic Lost, and it's how money's corrupted Congress, and just kind of the history behind that. And then it goes into, okay, well, now that you know how this all happened, well, here's the idea how to fix it, if it's fixable, And they had people, this was early this year, I think, basically telling Lessig that he's out of his mind. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's just mad that he's not one of the big high money guys. But there was a thing early this year and it was right. I think it was right before the election cycle started up,
Yep.
and but it was a thing that the Young Turks started up, and it was called. Well, it still is. It's called Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com.
Yeah, I know about
You
that one.
you know I everyone listening, I had to do that. I had
Yeah,
to. You had to. You got to.
you just go ahead and do that,
You
man.
have to. Yeah. I just dropped an elbow, so there you go. Um, Wasita. But there is a. So far, there's been two states, and the way that it works is there's been a call for a constitutional convention to have another, basically a 28th Amendment to the Constitution, basically saying that, um, money is getting out of politics. Because what ruined it was the overturning, I guess, of Citizens United, which basically gave corporations free reign to buy off politicians.
Oh,
And
we've got exactly the same problem over here in Westminster.
yeah, I mean, it's
Image of American politics nowadays over here is shocking because they try to sell off the welfare scheme. They're trying to sell off helping for the disabled. They're trying to sell off our national health scheme. The law.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's a big.
The argument that corporations can't be held accountable for their actions because they're not people.
Right. Yeah.
No, it needs to change entirely. It needs to change. Money definitely needs to be dragged out of politics. It shouldn't be a part of it. Exactly like I'm a firm believer that there should be no such a thing as a career politician.
No.
It needs to be abolished as well.
No. Well, we had a guy who I'm not, very happy that he was reelected last night.
It wasn't Senator McCain by any chance, was it?
No, but I mean, this guy is just about as bad as he is. I mean, just about. He's one of those guys that I guess you could say kind of learns to keep his mouth shut unless he's trying to get money. Which that's what they all do. But he ran for Senate this time. I mean, he's always been running for Senate. He's been there, no joke, for. I'm trying to think how long he's been.
Since the Dark Ages?
He might as well have.
Yeah. A dinosaur.
Yeah, I mean, literally, he might as he might as well have. He's
Queen Victoria was
he's been senator since 1997.
Oh my god, man! I was just a little bairn back
And
then.
this guy, he was running against. I only voted. Basically, I voted against all the incumbents. I didn't vote for anyone who was already in office. And he ran against a guy who was an independent named Greg Orman. And I swear, all of the political ads, which, they're hilariously made because you're kind of going, wow, this is horrible. But they, all the ads that he put out, he had one they showed where he had some guy who claimed to be a Marine, and I'm going, okay, I know what a Marine looks like, and Marines aren't pudgy. So, nice try. I mean, come on. When I think Marine, when I think Navy SEAL, I think of guys like, Dick Marchenko or, Rogue Warrior type guys. I'm not, yeah, but all his ads, I mean, he had the one, I'm a Marine. I'm going, yeah, okay, Forrest. But the rest of his ads were all about how a vote for Orman's a vote for the Obama agenda, and all this stuff, which is kind of typical. I mean, it's kind of what they.
Damn agenda, man.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the. I mean that's.
Two cheeks of the same arse.
Yeah, I mean pretty much, but.
Get Payday in between.
but this guy won last night, and it was literally down to the wire. Um, there's also another guy. If you've seen the Young Turks video on Sam Brownback and how he's ruined Kansas, and he was going against a guy Paul Davis, who is a Democrat, and I voted for him because I wanted Brownback gone. He's been there since 2011. But there's a video the Young Turks put out, just basically saying how Sam Brownback has just all the damage he's done. When he went in, the lady who was before him used to be the governor. She used to be the Health and Human Services secretary under Obama, and Sebelius. And one thing that that they talked about when she left, and she wasn't very liked in Kansas at all to begin with. I mean, let's face it, Kansas is, it's in the buckle of the Bible Belt. And when she left, there was a $300 million surplus in the budget. She also, I think she was one of the ones who started this thing about, there needs to be a balanced budget every year, or we're not going to spend anything. We have to be able to account for the money that comes in. And when she left, the very first thing that Brownback did was reverse that, basically, X that out. He did basically the typical Republican thing. Bush did the same thing. Tax cuts for the rich. He made cuts on education, cuts on healthcare. He was one of those guys who, felt he was being picked on by, the socialist fascist in the White House, which is kind of ironic since they're two totally different things.
Of course they are.
But he went through 300 million tax cuts and everything, and now the state is, remember, they have a balanced budget. It's at $800 million deficit.
Oh my God.
Out of what he did, trying to bring jobs in and do all this stuff, but the jobs he's bringing in, they're mega corporations, and
they only serve the wishes and intentions of the corporations and not the people.
Right. I mean, the biggest problem that's especially with politics now, and even the midterm results from last night. I mean, Cenk Uygur kind of made a good point, and John made a good point, where I said, you can sit here and you can kind of go, frick, and kind of go, okay, well, now what? But there are a lot of good things that happened with this midterm. You had Oregon, I guess, was one of the states that basically decriminalized recreational marijuana.
I was surprised Alaska was in that list as well.
Yeah, you had D.C. has now decriminalized marijuana. And then, of course, you had,
But when it comes to that kind of thing, there's bigger fish to fry.
Right.
Far bigger fish to fry. There's the epidemic of meth.
Yeah.
The epidemic of these strange Chinese synthetic drugs that are seeping into our nations, that are killers.
Right. I mean, my whole thing is, if somebody wants to, smoke up, then they can smoke up. I'm not gonna. I mean, they've already there's been studies. There's a study. Not a study. It's something that happened. There was, I think, a 3 or 4 year old boy or 3 or 4 year old girl. They were having seizures bad, like 3 or 4 a day,
I
and
see. Yeah.
and what they did was I guess they uh, basically gave them medical marijuana, and it cured the seizures. The seizures were gone, like literally the next day almost, and
There's a connection to marijuana and Parkinson's disease as
yeah,
well. Like,
I mean, I think a lot of it is, I mean, they passed it. DC did. Florida had to get 60%. They got up to 57%.
right.
But before the vote, it was up to a 90% approval rating. So the one thing, I mean, this is what happens all over the place. It doesn't just have to be an election. It can be, you know, all the time, basically, is a lot of money coming out of state by people like the Koch brothers
Yeah.
and, Americans for Prosperity and all these other groups. They come in, they pump in a bunch of money, and then something like that happens. Florida. I guess now Florida, they want to have a North Florida and a South Florida,
Yeah, I heard something about that.
and
They were talking about.
and I'm going. I think what it comes down to, a lot of people. I think it's kind of a frustration, I guess, for some, because I mean it was at a 90% approval rating for the passing of whatever amendment it was, and then for whatever reason, it didn't pass. I mean, I know what the reason, it was money. But another one that,
Well, with Florida, it was them crazy adverts
yeah,
that Millionaire did about Article 2D and stuff like that, and trying to make out that I don't know, Chicago type marijuana gangster dealers were going to come into the county and infiltrate
right,
society that way, when what they were actually talking about was legalized outlets,
yeah,
like your liquor store, off license as we call over here.
right,
These were actually registered outlet shops with particular procedures in hand in order with the whatever laws they had to abide within that county. It's
right.
it's pure scaremongering.
It's what it is, and then they had a kind of a good news thing. You had in 4 states, in Alaska, Arkansas, Nebraska, and South Dakota, they approved a raise, an increase on minimum wage, and Alaska had 69% won, Arkansas had 65, Nebraska had 59, South Dakota had 53, and I mean all four of them passed. The measures were passed, and I think in San Francisco it passed there, where the minimum wage now in San Francisco, I think, is 11.25, I think, or something like that.
And that's not too far off.
And
that's not too bad then.
yeah, I mean, even look at guys like Robert Reich, is a columnist. He had, what it comes down to is you have people who aren't able to buy the things that they make because they can't afford the things that they make. And going back, yeah,
Sanity.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you kind of go, okay, wait, what? But there was a when they first came out, when Henry Ford made his first car, he paid his workers the equivalent, well, not the equivalent, at the time, of $5. I think it was $5 a day, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was viciously attacked over it. He was called socialist and all this stuff. And somebody asked me, hey, why are you doing this? $5 a day. And he said, it seems, kind of stupid to basically, have people basically make all this stuff, but not have a way to
gain access to.
Even that, but even have not even be able to basically buy what they make. It seems
absolute insanity.
Dumb,
and it's when
yeah.
you know that things are completely wrong in society.
Well, I mean, even that, it can kind of come. It's basically it's treating your workers right, and
when you have a happy workforce.
I mean, when you have people that are happy, that are working for these companies, and they're able to afford, the things that they make, then what they'll do is they'll spend more money. More money that's spent means the economy is going to go up, and the more the economy goes up, that's more revenue.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it, and I think a lot of the arguments that don't really hold up, is you have guys will say, well, we can't, we can't do it. We can't raise the minimum wage because it's not, American, or it's not. And I'm going, okay.
There was some banshee cow was on Fox News that was saying, how dare these people ask, was it to do with Walmart or something like that, where they said, how dare these people ask for a minimum wage because they were protesting stuff like that, and just saying that they should be grateful that they have a job and all that. Well, that's all very fine,
right?
But if they can't afford to feed their families and even get out for a weekend to, I don't know, Disney World or somewhere like that, then what is the point?
Yeah.
What point? Just to be a slave to the well-oiled capitalistic machine?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
It's more and more dread and more negativity, and that doesn't go anywhere. It just creates more and more problems, and it ultimately it breaks down society as we know it.
Right.
The places that I've worked in the past, especially in retail, I used to work for Richard Branson at Virgin Megastores, which was his record store, sold the CDs and stuff like that. We were given a massive discount on merchandise. I think it was at that time. This was 15 years ago. It was 25% off anything, and I think some of the stuff like sale items, I think we got 50% off. It was insane. So maybe you got something that was just from £10, or we'll put it in dollars. Let's say now something that was $10 and was just down to $5. Then you were paying a fraction of that, to $2.50. For that product. He looked after his staff very well, even because I was with them into the millennium, and I was temp staff, so I didn't get this, but I got a Christmas bonus. But all
right.
Permanent staff at that point, he was launching Virgin Mobile, their cell phone operations, and he gave all his staff a free mobile phone as an incentive and a happy Christmas stroke millennium that year. And that was a good thing. It kept the workforce, well-oiled and happy. And, unfortunately, due to the way that technology progressed, and I think, he's a very wise man, is Richard Branson. He could foresee what was happening with digital downloads and things like that. And at that point, he decided, right, I'm going to have to stop Virgin Megastores now. And he sold off the company. And floated. I think they still exist to a certain extent over in France. I think we've still got a few stores over there, but in the UK, Virgin no longer exists. because he could see what was happening and he wouldn't have been making any money. And their competition are still going but are struggling. Their competition is known as HMV record stores over here. And they have been struggling. They've had to shut down a number of stores. We've even seen it with the book-stroke record stores like Borders Books, which is an American company, but they were very popular over here from the mid-90s right through until the mid to late noughties, as we call them. I think they actually stopped, they ceased trade, I think 2010 or 2011. Unfortunately, so you've seen a cultural change and a change because of technology being involved. We have, even after that, I worked in various shoe stores, and we were given heavy discounts, 50% off, 20% off, etc. We've given very generous discounts that kept the staff happy. I mean, because I was working in a sneaker store at one point.
Right.
God knows how many pairs of sneakers I had. I had all kinds of pairs of sneakers, Nike Air Maxes and all kinds of stuff. Just because of the insane prices that I could get. At that point, I spent quite a bit of my wages on trainers at that point. And it was good, but you don't see as much of that going on anymore. There's been a change within, certainly in the retail spectrum of things, that you don't get as much discount. And you're starting to get, I think to a certain extent, they are somewhat sensationalized horror stories. However, they do exist where you've got people that are maybe working in supermarkets and they're having to go to food banks to feed their own family because they can't even afford to buy their own shopping out of the supermarket that they work in. And these are not expensive supermarkets at all. These are supermarkets that are on the street supermarkets that are reasonable prices, but there's this great divide within United Kingdom nowadays that the lower spectrum aren't even able to afford basic necessities as their own food,
right?
Food, etc. Even the jobless nowadays are really demonized in this country. We have a program called Workfare. Well, in fact, we have a number of programs. We have one called Workfare. We have another thing called the Work Program, which is basically a course that you go on for 2 years, and it's a private sector company. They're fed money by the government. If they find a person a job, then they're given payments of, I think it's up to about, I don't know the figures, but they're given at least a few grand, a few thousand for finding this person a job. There's actually no incentive payment given to the client themselves. So if they get a job, then that's it. Yeah, they're going to get a wage. They're not given a handshake, let's just say, where they're given something at the start of their employment to say, well, well done, you've got a job. The corporate company gets that. They're treating, to put it bluntly, they're treating their clients like shit. I've heard many a horror story about that going on. The Workfare program is a program set up by the Tory government in which you're put into unpaid employment. They class it as voluntary. However, if you don't do this unpaid employment, which is up to 30, well, in fact it's 30 hours a week working for some charities and some corporate companies like Tesco's, which is a corporate supermarket. If you don't take up this work placement that the state gives you, you will lose your benefits. And your benefits are not a lot of money anyhow. I think benefits would work out in dollars, just under $300 every 2 weeks, and that's what you have to survive on. And when you think about it, you think, okay, so you've got $300 for 2 weeks. So if you divide that by 2, that's $150 per week. Divide that by 30, and then you see how much you're getting per hour for your time and effort. As well as that, you've obviously got to spend the rest of the time hunting for jobs, which is already stressful enough for many a person, because there's not a saturated market. You're still getting, in most cities, more than 20 odd people applying for one position.
Right.
You get a lot of dodgy companies as well that are not offering minimum wage. I don't know how they're getting around it, but what they're doing is they're offering jobs that have got on-target earnings attached to it, which basically means that you've got to get their nominated target in order to get any money. So you could be earning a nice amount of money 1 week because you've got your target, and then you're earning sweet F all the following week because you've just not made your target. And it's awful that we've got to this circumstances due to corrupt governments. It wasn't like that when I first started as a young adult. I did get my first job through the state, through the job centre as a young student down here in Leeds. That was the Virgin Megastores one, and whenever I changed jobs or I went for interviews, I had a very high percentage rate of actually getting that job. I always seemed to have got jobs because I wasn't stupid and I had a really good CV and things like that. It's changed now. CVs don't really matter that much. In fact, a lot of these places, including the state job centre, are actually encouraging you to lie through lie on your CV. But don't put that in. In some cases, I've got friends of mine that have got degrees, and they're told not to put down their degrees because it looks too smart for stuff that they want that person to apply for. Now, how come we've ended up this way?
Well, I think the biggest problem, especially with not just work stuff, but the whole thing, is these big companies like Walmart, the 9 surviving, Walmart family people, they have the wealth that they have is more than the bottom 90% in the country. And there's been, for years, people have known about this. There's I'm trying to think what the documentary is called. There's a documentary. Let me see if I can remember the name. It's like Walmart, high cost of low wage, or something along those lines. And I gotta find the name of it. It's called High Cost of Low Price, and it goes back to 2005, so it's fairly somewhat current, kind of, but not really. But
yeah, because even a hell of a lot has changed since back then.
Right. Well, it goes into. They've had people who've told stories of they'd be working, time for them to go, and their boss or supervisors, whoever, would tell them, okay, well, you can go. It's one of those. Well, go ahead and clock out. So they think, oh, well, it's time for me to go. All right, cool. I get to go home. Blah 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 blah. Then they tell them, where are you going? It's like, well, you told me to clock out. I assume this time, shift was done, everything. No. Get back on the register and keep working. Basically, they weren't getting paid for work they were doing.
Well, that's such familiar. I had that in the workplace.
I had,
every Saturday I was put on a 2-2 shift.
Right.
And, I almost said the wrong word there. But, I was put on a 2 till 6 shift, and the shop shut at 6, and we had people that may be working on 12 to 4, or sometimes I did all day. I did 9 to 6.
Right.
And when the shop shut at 6, they expected us to work for free to tidy up all the merchandise in the front of the shop, and it was getting the habit that every Saturday I wasn't getting out of that place until 6:30, 7:15. So they were actually having me in there for an extra half hour to 45 minutes for free. Whereas the lucky person that was maybe on till 4, 12 to 4 or 9 to 4 or whatever, was getting out at 4 o'clock on the dot. And, it happened a few times, and I thought, okay, let it go on by.
Right.
But it happened too often, and I decided, to say something, especially by the fact that, traffic was actually getting quite bad at that period, because Leeds is, compared to back home in Glasgow, Leeds is quite a small city, and it was getting really congested. So, my half an hour commute, easily, less than half an hour commute, was sometimes taking 40 minutes, and sometimes if the traffic was really bad, it was taking 45, 50 minutes. It was getting really unpredictable. So sometimes I'd be 5 minutes late, because I always tried to aim to be there on time. Sometimes I'd be 5 minutes late, and I'd have this really nippy sweetie of a manager pointing at our watch, tapping our wrist.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the time. And I'm like, I'm sorry, boss, blah, 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 blah. But, she never got sympathetic, the fact that I had to stay an extra half hour to 45 minutes after my shift, working for free, which, I did get really resentful for it, after a period of time, because, I do have a life. And Saturday night, I was a student at that time, I had a girlfriend, that's time spent with friends and girlfriend time, etc. Maybe I want to go out to cinema, or I want to go out for a meal, or maybe, my girlfriend did cook something, and, it was sitting there waiting for me when I go back to my house of residence and things like that. So
Right.
It really did get really annoying. So I brought it up one day, and the look on her face, it was as if I was, I don't know, telling her that the plague was on its way. Look of horror on her face, and I says, can you not see where I'm coming from here? I says, whether or not you're getting paid for it or not, you're on a higher level. You're getting management rates, so that will in some way compensate you for your time given. And after all, this is your career, so you're expected to put in maybe some extra time. And I said, I'm not being cheeky about it. I'm just telling you the obvious. I says, but I'm a student. I didn't sign any contract here saying that I was expected to work above and beyond my time, unless it was a special night where we were preparing for a sale the following day, which was all, organised a week in advance anyhow. I says, people have got lives here. But the thing is, it just went in one year and out the other year, and one of the main reasons was because there was no union. Of course there wasn't. So there was no, employees' rights or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, eventually it got to the stage that I ended up quitting, and I ended up working next door with a finger up at them, because I was just late by a couple of minutes, once too many in her eyes, and she decided that I was going to have some sort of disciplinary hearing with the area manager, and I just told her straight, I says, you can shove that up your bahookie. I didn't say, I didn't swear her, but I says, you can shove that up your bum. And she says, you what? And I says, you heard me. So I'm not doing any disciplinary hearing. You didn't listen to me when I was complaining about the fact that I was here for half an hour, 45 minutes after. I says, right. I'll tell you what, I'll do better than you. I quit. And the face, she was an absolute horror then.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, you hear about sexism in the workplace, and sexism was rife there, except for sexism was rife within the male population. It was a ladies' shoe shop, and I was, there was a few of us guys, and we were dog's bodies. We always were made to do the deliveries. We were always made to go up and down the big flight of stairs to put all the stock back, and you're constantly on stockroom duties, which meant you never met your bonus targets, and they didn't compensate you for that. Not down here anyhow. The Scottish store, the same company that I worked for, were lovely with me. They actually they mothered me up there. They were really adorable with me. So the manager quite often said, right, I'll put all my sales into your number, Colin, if you go and work tidying up the stock and all that behind the scenes. And that was great for me, because it was easier work. I had my music on, you know, and I kept a tidy ship, let's just say, behind the scenes. But down here, it was entirely opposite, and it got to the stage where I thought I took a big chance, you know, by quitting because I really needed the money. You know, being a student, having to pay majority of my rent, and you know, also have a bit of fun, and you know, traveling, you know, in terms of bus fares and stuff like that. But it got to the stage it was just like I couldn't even believe it when I said it. You can shove it up your bum, because it was just spontaneous, but it was obviously meant to be. And she told me to come in for my next shift, and I didn't even turn up for that. I got halfway into town from where I was living, and I thought, you know something? It was another Saturday. I was on a 2 till 6 shift, and I thought, screw this, I'm going home. It was summertime. I was like, I'm going home. I'm going to see my mates. They've got a barbecue going. That's it, you know. And I'd already got a job interview for the place next door. I didn't even need any references as such from them as well, because I actually told them the truth, which apparently you're not meant to do. But I just told them I had grief there. I also told them that they were somewhat sexist because I was a male, so I was doing all the hard work, which I didn't really believe in. I'm quite prepared to, you know, roll up my sleeves and get in there, you know, nitty gritty, etc. But when people start abusing it, it's not right. And you know, I said it was making me miserable and all that. And you know, I had an interview the following day, and they actually didn't even have any places, but they decided that they wanted me. And I got accepted for the job, and it was a massive phew. And I actually got more hours through them, which was ace. But you know, yeah, strange stuff. I don't know how we've got to this situation where, you know, people can't afford even to buy food from the supermarket they work in.
Well, I think a lot of that, especially with Walmart, there was a. What was?
Walmart, out of interest, more leaning towards the Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, there was a video a while back that your favorite and mine, Jesse Ventura came out with a I'm a fighter, a former Navy SEAL. I've seen things that'll blow your mind. You know him. He had a he had a video on Walmart, and the very first line, he goes, Walmart's slogan is save money, live life. Does anybody believe that bullshit? And he went into basically what it costs to build a Walmart in a certain area, how much it costs per year to maintain it, and then just all the damage it does. And then he goes into the wages, then he goes into, the people that want to unionize, and they basically say, hey, if you unionize, you're done. We're not, just basically you're fired. And there's been a lot of people who they basically walk off the job, and they say, all right, well, you're not going to let us unionize, and you're treating us horribly. Well, they basically pull a Cartman. Screw you guys, I'm going home. And it's just, I thought it was a really cool video, just kind of going into basically how they run their business. And he kind of made a good point where he said that if you look at the way Walmart maintains themselves and kind of just runs everything, he said it's a perfect example of crony capitalism.
Oh, he's totally right.
And I'm going, exactly, because he even mentioned him, and then of course, your favorite and mine, Russell, points out, saying, the top 9% of the Walmart family has 90% of the wealth in the US. He goes, that doesn't seem right. I mean, that's, and you've got Bill O'Reilly out there saying, well, that's just the way it is, and if you don't like it, well, you're just un-American. And it's that whole mentality. I mean, a lot of the places that Walmart goes into, they once they basically shut down. I mean, the way they come in is that yeah, they've got low prices, and yeah, some of the stuff they have is fairly decent and everything, but
Yeah.
a lot of the stores and a lot of the really smaller ones, they can't compete, and so I think that's kind of where Walmart kind of deals with with what they do. They kind of
We have the same thing. Before I get to that, I mean, what's interesting is we have a supermarket chain over here called Asda,
right,
who a matter of quite a few years ago actually got bought by the Walmart group.
right,
The reason why I asked if they were leaning towards the Republicans, i.e. the right, was because Asda actually give donor money to the Tories over here. So you kind of join the dots and see what's going on here. So Asda, aka Walmart, support the Republicans and also support the Conservatives over in this country. Did you know that one?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, well, you've got, of course, you've got all the kind of the big
However,
businesses, kind of.
aka Walmart is a very good supermarket. You do get some really good deals, like biscuits. For maybe they were like $1.50 and they're down to 50 cents and things like that. Speaking in your money,
Right.
big chips, Doritos or something like that. You're maybe getting for £1 when they're normally £2, or $1. They're maybe $2 and things like that. So
Right.
they do have custom, of course they do. I mean, I go to them regularly, but they're perhaps not as bad as Tesco's, which is one of the main players in this country. They're also very loyal Tory donor, very good chums with the Tories, where they perhaps open up one of their smaller stores in a small area and just like a cancer eat up all the local area.
Right.
I mean, you've seen a lot of change certainly in Leeds anyhow, certain areas now that were predominantly local shops and local produce. You've now got your big Tesco supermarket opening up. You've got an Asda, small Walmart equivalent supermarket opening up at the other side of that particular area. And then the rest of the shops that seem to thrive are the Eastern European, Polski, Latvian, Lithuanian type stores, because your typical independent British small shop can no longer thrive in that manner no more.
Right.
The big companies just are eating them up. And it's an actual shame, because you get into a situation now where you go from city to city and every area just looks the same. McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Tesco's, Asda's, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. You might as well be playing some PlayStation 1 computer game, driving game, where you're driving along the street and you see the same collection shops over and over again. That's
Right.
the way things look nowadays. There's no individuality going on within our cities no more. It's not completely gone, but it is going that way, and it's a sad thing to see, because everything's just general nonsense, wishy-washy. You will eat what we make you want to eat. You will buy what we want you to buy. If we have extra surplus of chili flavored Doritos, then you will buy them at this price because we need to get rid of them. Eat. Consumerism going on, and it's just no. It's really, I mean, there's no way of avoiding it, but there is ways of trying to block it out of your head. That's for sure.
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of. I mean, that's. Yeah. I mean, for some places like, well, especially like Walmart, even Asda or Tesco, a lot of it's more convenience. You're like, oh, I need to pick up, X, Y, and Z. Well, I'll just go here, pop in real quick, grab what I need,
Yeah.
and get out, real quick.
And and some people are not prepared to pay that extra 20 cents more to support a local shop because they maybe can't afford it.
Right.
Because it's built that way nowadays.
Well, that goes into the whole income inequality. You have a lot of people who are struggling, and it's not so. I don't think it's really a left or right issue at all. It's more. It's more of there's no real competition anymore.
No, there isn't.
You have the person that's making. I mean, it's bad enough that the way things are right now, women make something like 70 cents to the dollar as men do for the same thing and doing the same job. And
women paid less over there.
Oh yeah, I mean it's
yeah, to a certain extent you get that over here, but it's for more higher up jobs that you get that. Minimum wage is minimum wage, so it doesn't matter if you're male or female.
Right.
I think it would be the same for the likes of, in terms of retail, it'd be the same for the likes of a supervisor, and a manager as well. However, I think higher rate jobs like bosses, proper bosses, and CEOs and things like that, it starts getting slightly different then.
Well, I think with that one, it's really and it's kind of what Republicans do a lot. They look at, well, especially minimum wage jobs, and saying, well, at least you have a job, and that's kind of that's been their go-to line,
Yeah.
And
if you don't want that job, then you should get a better job and type attitude.
Right.
And I think also there's that with on the subject of women, there's also it's not as clear over here, but I'm aware of it being like that over in America, where you're looked at as a female and they're like especially younger ones. One of these days you're going to come in and ask for maternity leave. You're going to end up the duff, and we're going to have problems here because you're going to have a child and blah de blah. You're going to have time off, and you're going to inconvenience us. You're going to inconvenience the system. How dare you? How dare you procreate? How dare you have a life?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly how it is. It's.
I think we've got a lot more stringent laws to help prevent that over here. However, it is still apparent within certain places. It's just not abundantly clear that they're doing it in that manner. They'll always find another excuse of some sort to get rid or to do something or other to punish, which is sad. I mean, the good thing about over here is one thing that they did change recently is men are actually entitled by law now to have more paternity leave, which is a lovely thing. I think it is an important thing, especially the fact that we are seeing a continuing erosion of the family unit to a certain extent, where not necessarily that there's not that many families that stay together, and the broken families and things like that. And I think a lot of it's got to do with the modern world and the way things are run. It don't help. It must be. I'm glad I don't have any children, and I've not yet settled in that way. But it must be such an extremely difficult in the modern world, extremely difficult circumstance to do that. Maybe your child is born, and then a couple of days later you're back at work again. Whereas I think they're allowed to take up to a month off, or maybe even more. I can't remember exactly what it is, but they only changed this recently in the past few years, which it was a welcoming change to the system, because I think it is important for a child to have the father around in their life when they're first brought into the world.
Right.
Like the mother is, of course, the mother more so than the father, but equally the father as well, getting paid in order to spend time with his child, because it's a beautiful thing when a child is brought into the world. That was a welcoming thing. However, I don't think that exists over in America for you guys just yet.
No, I don't think it's not quite. I mean, what's I don't know. I think a lot of I don't know. It's kind of a I don't know if it's a movement or what you want to call it, but when you had the when you had the when the Occupy movement kind of started showing up,
Yeah.
and of course you had the people that would come in and try and cause trouble and everything, and that happens for every group. It doesn't matter who it is. At the very core, they kind of looked at, hey, this corruption that's going on and all this money that's being passed around, and there's no real benefit to it apart from you know the the tippy top. They're the ones that are seeing all the benefits of it. Well, that needs to change, and here's the plan. Da 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 da. Well, you'll have guys that, even if they don't want to admit it, you'll have like the Foxes or the CNNs, or even MSNBC. They'll pretend to be to be, I don't even know if you want to say unbiased. I guess they all are, but
they're all biased one way or other.
Even if you look at some of the so-called independent ones, they all have a bias to them, and
agenda. Just
right.
How strong agenda is depends on what channel you're watching.
Right.
Everyone's got an agenda.
But even with stuff like income inequality, with stuff like living wage increases, with stuff like you have a lot of states who, like I said, San Francisco and a lot of the places, Alaska, Arkansas, and all that, they kind of look at what's going on, and they say, okay, now hold on, this is going on, this is what people are dealing with. Hey, we got to do something to fix it. And I kind of, finally, it's something that makes sense. A lot of people are kind of going, okay, hold on, wait a minute, this isn't exactly make a whole lot of sense. But I think the big thing that a lot of people are looking at, and a lot of people are I don't know, somewhat understanding, or somewhat finally coming to a realization, is the way the system is now and the way that it has been for years just isn't working, and there has to be some sort of change, and there has to be something done to fix it. And we talked about a lot of different stuff in the last hour and a half or so, but the overall message, to kind of halfway wrap this all up, is the biggest thing that needs to happen is you'll have guys like the Alex Joneses and the Paul Joseph Watsons and all the people from that ilk. They'll have this whole idea of the only way to fix this is to have a violent revolution, and take up your gun because they're going to try and take it away from you and all this stuff. And the big thing, and I don't know if it was Russell Brand who said it or who said it, but they said the revolution isn't at the end of a gun, it's inside your mind. And that's where it starts. It's when you look at like newspapers or network news or even cable news and kind of go, hold on, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. I got to look at what the story is supposedly about and kind of find out, what the real story is. And there seems to be a more a I guess you could say there's more of a not so much a movement lately, but of trying to think how to even put it, of people who are just tired and people who kind of go, okay, well, kind of getting tired of this. Well, we got to do something. What's the plan? What are people? What's the idea that people have? What are they going to do to try and you know fix all this? And
I think us as millennials have the, a major part of what can be changed, because
right,
we are that collective group that a lot of us have gone through further education and come out the other end, and we've got to pay back loans, and we've got nothing to show for it. There's no jobs out there for what we studied. I mean, not necessarily me personally, but other people.
right,
And it's a situation where you're paying back student loans for basically something that it's no use to you. It's a piece of paper, because the system is broken. And you've got people working you saying, well, you've got to get yourself a job where you're on a minimum wage that is no use to you. You're maybe not even on a full-blown contract. You're maybe on 0-hour contracts that they've got over here, whereas things were always like 20 hours or 40 hours and things like that. So I think the millennial generation are the ones that are highly disenfranchised at the moment.
right,
There's a lot of us that are our age that can't afford to even get rent an apartment, so we're having to live with our parents. I mean, living with your parents at late 20s, early 30s was unheard of when we were young. Everyone in that age group back then that were maybe our age now were either settled down or they had their own place, and there was not that worry as much. And I'm not looking at things through rose-tinted specs. It was not a strange thing, but it was rather rare for that kind of thing to be going on. Whereas nowadays you've got a lot more of that going on. You're also in a situation where I would assume it's the same in America, that as a single person you're kind of looked down upon by the state.
right,
Because they want, although they're not pro family, they encourage you to be like that. Although they're not, it's a bit of a weird ideological doctrine going on. They seem to be pro family, but you as a single person seem to be a hindrance upon them in a lot of ways. I don't understand it. It's a thing that I've tried to look into a bit more as to why this has crept up over the past few years, but I've noticed it a lot. That it seems to be this way, and it's very bizarre. Something's got to give, and I think the key, the major key in how it can be changed is through the millennial generation, because they are the ones that are sitting here quietly fuming away and thinking, what I've put in all this work, but why have I not got anything to show for it? And it's not fair. Also, you're going to start getting millennial generation politicians, and hopefully they will not be seduced by the big bucks, and they will always try and remember where they come from, and fight against the rich elite that are coming from, well, in this case, the Eton crowd that are in power at the moment. Hopefully, this is going to be a thing of the past very soon, that these kind of individuals, if they, by all means, they can get into politics and they can become members of parties, politicians, and they some of them can become leaders and prime ministers, etc. But they've got to prove their weight in gold,
right.
if they want to do that. Whereas now it's the Bullingdon Club. nonsense that's going on in this country, and it's the most serious, vile aristocracy bullshit I've ever seen in my life. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. They ridicule the working man, like James Skinner, who's a former miner. Frank Skinner, I think it is. Skinner, anyhow, his second name. Dennis Skinner. Bloody hell. Dennis Skinner, who's a former miner, they ridicule George Galloway. Now, I know George Galloway has some fairly controversial views, but they would always ridicule him because he's a working man. These guys are sitting in that waste of space parliament, and just, laughing at the working man, and there needs to be a rise up of the working man because we have more power within ourselves than what they definitely do. It's just there seems to be this element of fear and this element of worthlessness that the majority of people feel, and that needs to change. They already know that it is beginning to change. They already feel the ripples. That's why they're trying to come down on free speech through the internet, through this disguise of anti-terrorism legislation. They don't want people like me and other people posting up stories about what they're up to. I mean, the latest scandal that they've got here is they've lost the records of the expenses fiasco from 4 years ago. They've just suddenly disappeared, been destroyed. How come no one is being held accountable for this? How come no one is going to court for this? How come no one is getting fired for this?
I think a lot more people are starting to. I mean, thanks to, especially thanks to the internet. A lot of people are finally seeing how things are and seeing what's going on, and they're kind of going, hold on, wait a minute.
Well, stories, not even stories as in like made up stories, but breaking news that maybe took hours and in some cases days to break is literally broke within an hour, if that.
Right. Well, I mean, even look at that film.
For instance, like when Michael Jackson died, it was straight out there, just like that.
Right.
Or that might have taken quite a few hours to saturate around the world within, dinosaur media back in the day.
Right.
Think that do change it, but equally you're at war, and I don't mean it in a violent way. Fine, well, I don't, but
right.
I'm sticking to others. But we're constantly at war with the establishment because they're trying to crack down on the tools that we use, the awareness that we use through the tools, and the information that we pass to each other. Because people are joining up the dots a lot more quicker nowadays. You can see so many parallels to American so-called democracy as to what you can see over here. You can see so many connections. You can see, foreign entities from other states that, fine who I'm talking about. I'm not going to bash them because I bash them enough. But,
right.
You've got AIPAC and, Friends of Israel infiltrated within our political parties that are foreign entities. If this was Arabs or if this was communist Chinese doing this and pumping money into our political parties, there'd be such an uproar. Why is there not an uproar about the likes of that going on?
Well,
not
I think,
it's utterly disgraceful. It's utterly, disgraceful, and everything like that needs to change. The system's rotten to the core. That's my biggest conclusion of it. The system is rotten to the core. Even the Scottish independence idea, you could see how different Scotland and its parliament is as a nation. There is none of that going on up there. Now, there's things wrong. Of course there is. There's not as much sleaze, but, there's things to do with expenses and things have not been handled in the right way. But the majority of people up there are not rich lords that are working for the government. The people up there are maybe rich people, but not insanely rich. But they do care about their people. They do care about the draconian measures that are being conducted down in an English parliament and implemented along the whole country.
Right.
It's also created an awakening as well within England itself that the county that I'm in, Yorkshire, for instance, are actually now, there's a lot of people that are saying, well, Scotland, they had a chance to become independent and they're going to be given more power out of this. Well, how come we're not being given any more power? However, the alarm bells do ring that the Tory party are very welcoming about this, because a few years ago I read an article and it was to do with the European Union, and it was to do with the fact that the European Union's biggest plan was to regionalise everything. So in terms of the Great Britain plan, they want it regionalised, that they want either a Yorkshire collective Lancashire, which is where Manchester is, etc., combined regional parliament or governing body, and they want it to be the Midlands and all that. So I think that's why the Tories are very doing this with their hands and thinking, yes, we should be doing this. It's wonderful. Yes, we should definitely decentralise the government. Yeah. Also, I think in certain ways they're probably actually going to get more money given to them as a party anyhow, because you might not necessarily have the Tories in power in Westminster, but you might have the Tories in power in the borough of Sussex or somewhere like that. So in some ways it's going to ghettoise our political ideology, where you might constantly have the same political party in particular counties for the foreseeable future. It also dilutes the idea of having a third new party. I don't include UKIP or any of that nonsense in anything. I'm very alarmed at the rise of UKIP. I'm also very alarmed at the rather unholy alliance with the far right EDL and Britain First with UKIP. It just shows you exactly what team they bat for,
Right.
in terms of their political agenda and ideology. But for instance, if you wanted to have the Green Party or another party that was maybe to appear out of the woodwork, a People's Party, not a Communist Party, but a working man's party that was more geared up towards a fairer, balanced situation for normal working class people. Not Labour, because that's the way Labour used to be, but it definitely isn't now. It's lost its way, but it's going to kind of scrub out that in a lot of ways. I don't see that being able to flourish, that kind of grassroots campaign that you could possibly get through the way the system is now. However, the system's suffocating any kind of grassroots campaign anyhow, because there is the usual poisonous money in politics. Until that's taken out of the equation, then you're always going to get Tweedledum and Tweedledee of the two main parties swapping posts every so often, which is alarming to say the least. Like I said, I'm glad I don't have any children, because I wouldn't want to bring them up in this country the way it is right now. I remember my grandparents mourning a lot, because when I grew up we were under Tory rule, and I remember them being really angry. I think God help them if they were alive right now. God bless their souls, but they'd be more than upset about what's going on. It's an absolute disgrace. But gradually the big beast is beginning to wake up. It just needs to keep on waking up, and then we can actually reclaim this country and have what they tried to tell us British values, but are not British values, but our idea of British values back into the country, and get rid of this cancer that's just taken over. And it all started from the Thatcher, the yuppies. It all started from back then. So I've seen it, I've grown up and been reared up that way, and I've just seen it get worse and worse and worse. I think Tony Blair was the final nail in the coffin. That's when it all just exploded into nutness, absolute mentalism. And people are not, the thing that's disgraceful as well is people are not being held accountable. Like I said, those expenses have been lost. Over here as well, we've got a massive paedophile situation going on. That there's dossiers being lost from the 80s. There's MPs being implemented and all sorts of things, and there's just been so many quiet cover-ups going on. How dare they even point a finger at the likes of Russia and try and make them to look like the bad guys? Because this is worse than any Soviet thing that I know about. The way they're doing things, we're worse than the way the Soviets were back when it was communism there. Fact. It's very scary, very scary. But, people definitely need to rise up in a peaceful way, and they also need to do what Brand and even to a certain extent what the Young Turks say. If you want to change something, start with your local governing bodies. So, over here, start with your councils, change things within there. Once you've changed there, then you can start looking at the bigger picture of things. That's how, the system needs rebuilt, building blocks from the very roots of it, and that will start with local government. This is applicable to America, it's certainly applicable to over here. If you change the local government and change the ideology of that, then you can change bigger things. I'm fortunate enough that I do have quite a few reasonably good MPs over in this city. Unfortunately, who they are affiliated to is another matter. But I've got the likes of Hilary Benn, who's Tony Benn's son. He's an MP for here, but unfortunately he's for Labour. I've got a guy called Greg Mulholland, who's a Liberal Democrat. He would have made a fantastic leader of the Lib Dems, and I don't think he would have done a Cleggie and then Clegg and formed an unholy alliance with the Tories. I think he would have told them where to go. But unfortunately, they chose Clegg instead. But there is some reasonably nice and not work shy MPs within the system. It's just that there's a lot of rotten, corrupt, backcap, evil parasites that are currently leading the system at the moment. Labour has no chance. I mean, I don't think Labour are going to get in the next general election next May. If they do, though, they're going to be bloody lucky. Scotland are had enough of them. Scotland has certainly had enough of them because you've got people that predominantly voted for Labour that are now voting for the Scottish Nationalists, purely because Labour, they feel let down by them under Blair rule, and to a certain extent under Gordon Brown rule. However, he did inherit a mess, a bit like Obama inherited Bush's mess.
Right.
But they feel disenfranchised under Labour. There's also there's still that heavy bruise of the fact that Blair was hell bent on going to Iraq and going to fight old Madass Hussein with his big war criminal buddy Bush. People are very still unforgiving about that, especially the fact that there's no accountability. There has been no change within the Labour Party. The SNPs are quite happy to turn around and say Iraq was an illegal war, and they're right, but Labour will not recognise that they made big mistakes, and you've still got Blairites within the party. I noticed that we've actually got rid of one, because Alistair Darling's standing down. Old Grasshopper, not Grasshopper, old caterpillar eyebrows.
Right.
He's standing down next election, so that's bye. Don't slam the door behind you.
You mean I'm not going to get to witness the awesome power of Alistair Darling?
Well, what was interesting, they were talking about him on the BBC yesterday, and they were saying that he can leave in a very rare occurrence that he actually achieved something.
Right.
And they were trying to make out that it was all him single-handedly that helped Scotland not to become independent.
Right. I wouldn't doubt that they had a role to play in that.
Well, of course he had a role, but he wasn't the saviour of that no campaign by any means. Because it got to desperate measures. They brought out Gordon Brown from semi-retirement to rustle up the crowd to try and convince them otherwise that it wasn't a good idea, which I found was a joke. I found it was an absolute joke. And the Labour leader of Scotland, she resigned because she basically said that Labour down here were basically using Scotland as a field office for their kind of thing. So she actually stood down as a leader and had enough, because Labour has totally lost its way.
Right. Well, I think a lot of the parties have, though. I mean, it's not so much between Labours and Tories and all the ones over there. They all are, and I think eventually you're going to have people who are going to look at each of the parties and go, you know what, none of these are worth anything, and what's happening, how it's been in the past, especially over here when you had Ross Perot, who ran against between Bush and Clinton, and he ran under the Reform Party, which is basically they're not really independent, but they're a third party. I think a lot of the time, it takes votes away from one party or the other, and usually when you have, say, an independent candidate or even libertarian going against Democrat or Republican, depending on how many, basically depending on the area you live in and how many of the independent candidates get a vote, or how many vote for him, it usually takes away from the Democrat, usually, for whatever reason. I don't know what you knew why, but that's usually what happens, is the Democrat gets the votes taken away from them, because a lot of people look at it as, well, none of these matter. They're all the same, so I might as well just, go.
Yeah.
Just gonna go with this guy. And I think what's going to happen, and there's a thing that I saw earlier, Cenk Uygur made a good point, Cenk and John did, and kind of in a way JR did as well, where you can look at what happened yesterday with the midterms, and you can kind of have okay, now what? But I think what will probably happen is, now we have, because they're probably going to start it fairly soon. You're going to have another year and a half of campaigning, and
money raising as well.
I mean, that's just how it's always been. It's always, it always starts out sooner and sooner.
Something starts. It's a bit like Christmas comes earlier nowadays.
Right.
And that's old age seeping in. I think is actually coming earlier and earlier. It's going to get to a stage that I think when you and I are like 70 odd, Christmas will start in July or something.
Yeah. But the thing that that they brought up is you can look at what happened during the midterms, regardless of if you're Republican and you're happy, you're Democrat, and you're kind of going, well, fuck, what are we going to do now? I think 2016 is going to kind of be I think it could be a big one. I mean,
I hope to God Hillary Clinton's not in the hot seat.
I don't think. I think what'll happen is I think.
But just principle the matter. I cannot get that woman insane sociopathic. We came, we saw, he died.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the.
I cannot get that out of my head every time that woman's name's mentioned. That is the epitome of a sociopath.
Well, I think even hey, let's face it. To run for political office, you have to be a little crazy to begin with.
Well, yeah, but that's taken into a whole new realm.
Yeah, that goes right down to when Bush said you're either with us or you're with the terrorists.
Or when God came and spoke to him and said he needs to go to war.
Right. I mean that's yeah. Yeah. You're kind of going, oh, okay, hold on, wait a minute. But I really think that this next election is going to be a big one. I really think that, I mean, I'm not a conspirator to begin with. I don't believe in, black helicopters and,
Oh, it's them black ops, dude.
It's the, well, it's false flag, Gulf of Tonkin.
I looked at Putin's eyes and I could see that he was a good soul.
Yeah.
Good man, he had a good soul.
Yeah.
Funny how they don't talk about that when they're going on about Obama and giving some leeway.
No.
After the election. Funny how they forget about the old Bush thing.
Right.
He's looking into Putin's eyes.
I looked into his eyes and I could see his soul. We were in Sri Lanka. It's like, whatever, dude. Shut up.
Serbia, was it? We're in Serbia.
Yeah, it's like, come on, dude. You don't need to pronounce it that intensely. But the thing that you look at, I mean, it's going to be up for grabs either way, and I think this.
I don't think we're going to see a Palin running.
No.
What about McCain?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think McCain. I think what it'll come down to on the Democrat side. I mean, of course you're gonna have Hillary.
I assume Randy Duffy's gonna run for it, but he's an idiot.
Yeah.
He's an absolute muppet, Rand Paul.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, absolute muppet, and he's a Zionist shill as well.
I mean, Rand Paul is he's just a younger version of his old man, and
in fact, to be honest, I think he's worse than his old man.
Yeah, and
he's a Zionist shill. He's said enough. Like, all right,
yeah,
you're smart.
But I think on the Republican side, I mean, you'll probably have Romney will do it again.
Oh God.
You'll have Santorum will do it again.
Sanatorium.
Yeah, you'll have more than likely Jeb Bush will probably do it again.
Oh yeah, I knew Jeb.
Or there's another Bush, George P. Bush or something like that.
Oh God.
Yeah.
This revolving door.
It's all it is, really.
This revolving door needs to be jammed shut as well.
But I think on that side.
Circus.
Yeah. But I think on that side is it's like what Carlin said. When you're born, you're given a ticket to the freak show, and if you're born in the U.S., you have a front row seat.
Well, we've got a young Blair getting into politics as well here.
Yeah.
And each to their own, but anyone with the name Blair should be banned from politics, full stop, in this country. I certainly don't want a junior Blair making an entry.
No.
That's just a recipe for disaster.
Well, I mean, on the right, you'll probably have Romney, you'll have Jeb Bush, you'll probably have George P. Bush. You might have Gingrich again.
Oh no!
You might have.
Still married to that Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah, he's married to a crypt keeper, and I don't think Palin will do it. I think.
She's talking about spanking Obama.
Yeah.
Naughty boy.
Yeah.
She's getting more nuts, man. The stuff that I've heard from her recently.
Yeah, a lot of her stuff, you're kind of going, okay, hold on. But I think you're going to have, you'll have, Gingrich, you might have Romney again, Santorum. You might even have Charlie Crist. You might even have Rand Paul. The Democrat side, I don't know. I mean, of course you're going to have Hillary. That's just to be expected. You'll have Biden might run.
No, I don't think Biden will, because every time Biden's let out on it by himself, he tends to tell the truth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I really don't see.
I wouldn't even have been surprised if it was Biden. I don't think it was. I think it was the opposite side of the Obama administration that leaked out the chicken shit comment. But I wouldn't be surprised if Biden had said it. Bless him. He was definitely right about the Sauds and the I don't know if you call them Qatarians, but the Qatars, about them funding ISIS. I was like, oh, you go for it, Biden. A bit of truth for once. Well done, son. And then he got put back in his cage again straight afterwards because he'd said too much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just, I think a lot of people have become really disenfranchised, and I think we're going to have a lot of people who are, I don't know, I'd like to think that there could be a third party or even an independent. I'm not real crazy about the whole libertarian thing. A lot of them seem to be like, they look at Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged as like the lost book of the Bible,
It's dangerous.
And I'm going, yeah, that's no. But
you've got another 2 years of Obama, haven't you? I'm right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have got the elections next year. Our very conniving unelected regime very quietly changed the 4-year term to 5-year terms without our approval. Can you believe that? So it's been a very long 5 years. I have literally been counting down the months for the past year or so, just thinking, okay, it's not that far. May 2015, roll on, and we've got now literally 6 and a bit months until things hopefully are going to change. My worst nightmare is to be a Tory UKIP coalition. If that's the case, I'm getting the hell on out of this country. I think I'll just pack the little towel thing with a few clothes, put it on a stick, a bit like him out of Charlie Brown, and start walking on my merry way to another country, because no way am I putting up with this for another 5 years, because all hell's going to break loose, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I want to get the hell out of here as quick as possible, because that's just a nightmare scenario for me. Absolute nightmare scenario, not just for me, for a whole load of people.
Right.
All anarchy will break loose. For
sure. I think the big thing to remember now is, you're gonna have all the people who are talking about running. They're gonna put out their next book that nobody's gonna read except the people who believe everything they talk about. And I mean, it's kind of how the cycle is. If you think you're gonna run, you put out your book, and that's how it's always
Hillary's
been.
Book now, hasn't she?
Yeah.
God.
And
has it been? I'm going to be sick.
It's it was. I mean, it's. I mean, everyone's. I mean, all the podcasters got to have a book, you know. And I think if you have, I mean, you're going to have basically all the old, all the.
Have them go to the Great Wall in Israel with their caps on and arse like that over and over again. That'll be shown to us on television. And, I mean, I wonder if extraterrestrials do exist and they receive our news pictures, what they must think of a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so predictable and it's just so beyond a joke. We'll have more arms getting sold to the Saudis. Tell me this, how can the Saudis or the UAE in general be in coalition with a bombing campaign on ISIL, yet we've not seen any video footage of any Saudi jets flying?
Yeah.
Have you seen footage of a Saudi jet bombing an ISIL target? Because I haven't.
No, no.
I saw one story, and I'm not sure. I would love to believe it's true, but I'm not too sure. It may have been just a propaganda story that it was about a female fighter pilot who was fighting against ISIL, and she, I think she may well have been from. I might be wrong, but she might have been from the United Arab Emirates. But you know, they buy all these weapons because they've got scores and scores of British weapons and British-made helicopters. Fire jets, and they've got all the American stuff. I don't know the names of the things because I'm old school that way. I know Lancaster bombers and Spitfires and all those. Those are things of beauty, although they were used for destruction. You know, I know about B-52s and things like that even, but I don't know about modern weaponry. But you know, they've got scores and scores of this stuff over lying in some desert near them, collecting sand as we speak, and as far as I can see, the Arabs are just down on paper for trying even more to legitimise a thing that is necessary. Of course it is. By no means am I saying that they shouldn't be doing it. However, it shouldn't needed to have been done in the first place because they've created it. But I've never seen any Arab fighter jets actually on any footage. I've never seen any at all. I've tried looking for some. I can't find any. It's an interesting. I'd love to be proved wrong. You know, I'd love to think, well, maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but I've not actually seen anything at all. Same with, you know, what the Turkish are doing as well, actually, about that. You know, I know we're going back to that subject, but, you know, them just standing, looking over Kobani and not doing anything. Very dangerous. I'm not sure about Turkey at the moment because I've seen what's going on with that new leader, that Erdogan, and I don't like him. It's not even a question of I don't trust him. I know I don't trust him. I know he's a dictator in the making because he comes out as being very religious and very Islamic and mashallah, my brothers and sisters, etc. And, you know, just coming out with stuff like that. But on the other hand, he's got a thing going on where the crowd, certainly it's the political rallies that I've seen on Vice News, for instance, where they've got him basically idolised, and I don't like that. That's a dictator in the making. And also, you know, Turkey's very secular, but it seems to be going backwards, back in time. I mean, because I have had friends that have gone on holiday over to Turkey.
Right.
And they've been drinking in resorts and they've had a beautiful time over there. They've gone and seen, you know, the history that, you know, the likes of Istanbul can bring. It looks like a very beautiful place to go. However, it's going backwards. And one's got to ask, are those patriot missiles still over there?
It wouldn't surprise me if they are.
Why are they not being used against ISIL?
Yeah.
You know what? These lot not doing anything.
Right.
That's the thing. You know, because the problem is as well, if ISIL infiltrate, and I don't think they will, because Turkey does have a strong military. It has one of the strongest militaries in the world. But if ISIL were to surprise the world by invading Turkey and taking up a large chunk of Turkey, we're in deep doo-doo, because that's the gateway to Europe. We're in deep doo-doo. Putin won't, put up with that, and it's too near Putin's territory, so Putin's going to get involved. The Americans are going to get paranoid alongside the British. That's going to create a problem. Idiots are not going to negotiate with idiots, either side. That's going to create an absolute nightmare, panic beyond imagination. And at the same time, ISIL are going to gain more and more ground, and they are hell-bent on taking Turkey. They've said that many a time, even when the catastrophe was beginning to unfold. You know, they said that they wanted to get to that dam that lets the water flow down the Euphrates River. They wanted to get there, and that's in Turkey. So they're hell-bent on doing that. Very worrying, because if they start doing that, God knows what's going to happen. I think in the long run, I think it's realistically plausible that we're going to have actual on record boots on the ground, because there's just too much going on for them not to do it. There's too many things that especially we've seen with Syria recently with the so-called moderate rebels giving up to Al Qaeda. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be more of that. The Iraqi army are not equipped enough. They've not got enough balls to even cope with this. They'll run away. Just ultimate lawlessness. And it's incredible, yet again, how, and within a year, how much ground they've actually covered. Now, a lot of it's been to their luck, because of the civil war that actually had been going on in Syria for a long time, so they used it to their advantage. But, I don't know. It's strange. I think, definitely Turkey and Iran need to start talking to each other and let bygones be bygones, and say, look, we've got a common problem here. We need to do something, and they need to come up with the Arabs. But trying to get that working is almost damn near impossible.
Right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to put aside, and I think I'll wrap it up here. If you look at all the geopolitical issues going on with Iran and Syria, with Turkey, with Egypt, with Iraq, even with Saudi Arabia, throw in North Korea in there too. Why not? They don't want to be left out. You have to look past all the religious stuff, and you got to look at, okay, what's the best thing to do for the people that live in whatever country, Syria, or in Saudi Arabia.
Well, it really infuriated me that the Western world as a whole, although our Prime Minister did speak with, is it Khomeini? Or am I saying his name wrong? The president of Iran. What's his name? Is it Khomeini again?
I think it is.
Mine's gone to shot.
Yeah, it's what's the guy? Are you talking about the guy that's the president?
Our Prime Minister had a meeting with him, but the fact that the Americans turned around and says, no, we will not speak to the Iranians, we're not even going to invite them to the table, I was infuriated by that, because it's time to change this nonsense. But I think a lot of that to doing is nutter yoo-hoo.
Yeah.
Just spreading his poison, as usual, and just doing his crap. I mean, his UN speech last month was absolutely despicable. That's the only word to actually describe it. Even calling the UN humanitarian side of the UN terrorists. What a disgrace. Absolute disgrace of a man. Well, he's not even a man. Absolute disgrace of an animal. To be even able to be allowed that actual chance to be up on that pulpit and say that. Absolute disgrace. Go back to where you come from and think again. Enough's enough. But the fact that they would not even allow the Iranians to the table to discuss this problem that's actually going on their own back doorstep, it was utterly disgusting. And it's not going to solve anything.
No.
Because the Iranians would have been a valuable lifeline to them. What a lot of people fail to recognise when it comes to the Iranians is they actually do a hell of a lot in the situation in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
They intercept a lot of drugs that are getting trafficked, and it's not necessarily just the drugs that are getting trafficked into their own country. They do a lot of interceptions that are going on in that border and stop drugs flow, just like the Russians do. In fact, I would say probably collectively the Russians and the Iranians have probably intercepted more drugs getting taken out of that country, poppies-wise, heroin-wise, than what the Americans and Brits have done. I think we can safely say that's probably a fact.
Yeah.
Which, we can come out with a whole load of conspiracies about that, but I think what we're definitely agreed upon is that the Western leaders are not really that bothered about the fact that drugs are getting taken in and out of that, taken out of that country and flooding the markets. That's carefully ignored for some reason.
Well, I think the big thing with all of it, with the drug, well, now you have. I mean, let's face it, the war on drugs has been an absolute failure. And you look at Colorado, look at California, now look at DC, and the whole medical marijuana. Well, now it's not even medical. Now it's recreational.
Yeah.
I think the big thing now.
Well, look at even the attitude Uruguay had.
Yeah.
Where they were getting accused of promoting drugs use, but no, they weren't. All they've done is legalized it because they knew it was a never-ending battle. It was draining finances by trying to prevent it, and it wasn't working. The revenue that is coming out of the sale of marijuana, which the state is actually a part of, goes into situation where that it's going to be helped in terms of to try and dissuade people that are perhaps addicted to things like that, or addicted to the feeling that you get from maybe drugs like marijuana, etc. like that. So it's actually it's a far better idea than black marking somebody because they have a problem.
Right. I mean, the one thing that works, and it's been proven time and time again, is instead of, I'm trying to think where it was at. I want to say it was in, it's somewhere. I mean, I'll have to look it up again. But for people who have basically arrested for possession,
yeah,
the charges are dropped from a felony, which when it's a felony, it's mandatory time.
Yeah.
It dropped from that to a non-violent misdemeanor. And I mean, it's it's a start, but there's a long way to go. And the fact that you have 90% of the prison population in the U.S. is for non-violent crimes, and is it really a crime for somebody who basically wants to toke up, and giggle like an idiot and eat some
Yeah,
eat some Cheetos and watch a movie or something.
Stoners beating up their wives because they're too inebriated on that stuff.
Yeah,
They generally have a giggle and they fall asleep.
yeah,
Whereas alcohol is the the number one culprit for that kind of nonsense being conducted. I'm sorry if you can hear some background noise.
No, you're cool.
The crazy one downstairs has started their nonsense.
But I think with a lot of that, it's treatment works, and obviously mandatory jail time doesn't work for a non-violent crime like possession. But
well, it ties up resources and it's a waste of resources. That could be used to prevent something else.
Right. But I think the big thing is it's all about money, and something's got to change with that. The politicians need to realize that money isn't the thing that really matters. Obviously, yeah, you have to raise money to run for office, and blah blah blah. But the thing that a lot of them need to realize is a lot of people, especially with this midterm, a lot of the really close races, a lot of people were disenfranchised with what their options were, and they kind of look at it as, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And, how am I going to vote and all this stuff. Some of them decide, well, I'm just going to stay home and I'm not going to do anything, and, all that, which, hey, that's all up to them. But the thing to do is, I think a lot of the politicians, doesn't matter what side you are, red, blue, purple, whatever, is they tell people, well, we're bought and paid for by, all the lobbyists, and we're not going to listen to you and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, that's fine, do whatever you got to do. But a lot of people are kind of saying, all right, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold you accountable for what you do while you're in office, and you make all your promises, things that you're going to do. Well, if you don't do, A, B, or C, or if you say you're going to do one thing and you do something else, well, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it so you are either impeached out of office or you're kicked out. Or if you can't be kicked out and someone else runs against you, we're going to vote for the guy running against you with the hopes of, with the hopes of getting you kicked out. And a lot of people did that. A lot of people had the idea of, okay, well, if I do this, then that's going to fix everything. Could be. That could be an option, down the road. Like I said before, I really think 2016 is going to kind of be the year of the independence, maybe. Not just on presidential level, but on a...
I remember us sitting here back in 2012, bro, saying the same.
Yeah, it's...
I think we saw a big ray of sunlight that he might actually fulfill what he was meant to do with Obama.
Right.
But I do recognise that his hands are extremely tied. He's aged a hell of a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I see a very, very tired and frustrated, getting older man there.
Oh, yeah.
He's not had a pleasant time, within the presidency. When you look at him, back in the 2012, 2008 when he was first elected. When you look at him back then, and you just see how it's gone on 6 years now, and how he looks now, very frustrated, tired.
Right.
man, that you can almost hear him screaming out. I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah.
I don't be doing this, but they're not gonna. It's not gonna change because it's impossible. The system's fecked.
Yeah.
I don't have an immense sympathy for him, because I think there is always ways to change. However, he would always get hassle. They would call him more of an emperor than they do now. We know that, because there's always that emperor nonsense coming out. But he's just a prime example, more so than the bumbling idiot predecessor before him, that you can see that the system's not right, because he's sitting there and basically is a glorified teleprompter reader. And the things that he wants to implement and change, he can't. I do hope he fulfills his wishes, because I do believe that he wants to shut down Gitmo. But he's got a mighty big fight ahead of him. And the president of Uruguay is right about Gitmo. That is a dark, dark stain on American democracy. That place, no matter what people say, they can say, oh, they're giving this and they're giving that. That place is a hellhole. It should never have happened. It will be a dark, dark stain in the history of America, in the future, in the history books. Perhaps that's why we don't say too much about Saudis beheading people, or Malachi's, the former Iraqi Prime Minister, committing torture to get so-called confessions of people that, bodyguards and things like that they were part of this and that, because virtually the same is happening there. I think as time goes on, when you and I are perhaps old men, the stories that are going to unfold out of there are going to be horrifying. Perhaps we'll know sooner, because there was that court hearing, wasn't there, that they were going to release information about the force feeding, weren't they?
Yeah, I think people are kind of getting tired of being force fed the same thing from different channels, and it's all the same stuff. And
I'm even talking about the force feeding that's going on in Gitmo. When food protests, etc. But the horror stories that already have unfolded out there are absolutely disgraceful. Apart from any fact, I'm sorry, I'm a firm believer in this. That is occupied land. That's Cuban land.
Right.
No matter how many years, because it's not been. How long has there been an American base there? Way over 100 years.
Yeah.
No, give it back to the Cubans.
Even if they just let them control it, in my opinion, it should have been opened up to begin with. But
I think they've tried the recent propaganda campaign, because I noticed in what's her name? That really hot journalist, Abby Martin of RT. They let her in. She did a program recently about Gitmo, which was interesting. But everything's all censored, and you're not allowed to show this because it might reveal such and such. And is it Camp 7 or something like that? The infamous. I'm sure it's Camp 7. One of the camps you're not allowed to look into at all. You're not allowed to know anything about. There's no matter what the media try and spin, there's a lot of innocent people in there that are future possible, unless they're really, really moralistic. But I don't even think, me personally, if I was locked up for more than a decade in a hellhole and not able to do what I wanted to do, I would come out all forgiven. They're creating future terrorists in the making, and even creating terrorists within the families of these people, because some people won't have seen their father for such a long, long time and are just going to have so much hatred inside them to Americans and Westerners in general because of what they have done.
Right.
I mean, what an absolute mess! What an absolute disgrace! Scary, very scary.
It really is. I mean, the whole thing's...
These countries where these people originate from will not take them back.
No.
It's just, worrying. Uruguay offered assistance by taking some of them, but I don't think that it wasn't a question of it wasn't granted. I don't think that was able to happen due to something that had happened paperwork wise. I think something got messed up from the Americans' part, and that got cancelled. And as far as I know, I don't think it's happened just yet, but that president, the old guy, I've forgotten his name, but he's standing down soon. And it looks like we might get some puppet who's the son of a former president in, and he won't be like that. He won't do things like that, which, I really feel for these people that have just been picked up out of nowhere. And some of them were just like farmers, shepherds, etc. And they've just been picked in the middle of nowhere because they were in wrong place at wrong time, in the Americans' eyes, intelligence-wise. And we know the intelligence, by the result of what ISO has become now, is a big raging monster. We know that intelligence is lousy. I mean, that's the thing I can't get my head around. They're spying on everyone, including their own people. Yet they can't work out what the hell's going on over there. They're doing things totally wrong. No wonder whistleblowers are coming out and saying stuff.
Right.
No wonder. Because, it must wrestle some people's conscience within the spying circuit. But, and it's not just NSA. GCHQ are equally as guilty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've even heard some stories that they're worse than the NSA, and that would not surprise me. I think they just tag anyone, person of interest. I mean, I've as you know, and I've got no reason to hide this because it wasn't me. It wasn't even my friend, but I know how easy it is to be victimized and harassed by the establishment, just because some idiot has a grievance against your friend, and they phone up and say, "Oh, I think he's involved in terrorism, blah de blah," and all of a sudden, your mate's house gets raided, and there's something really clearly wrong with a lot of things that are going on. And I told you that story, so you know fine well that there was nothing to hide there. I was my friend had Asperger's syndrome. I was staying with him for a while because I was in between houses, and they came in and took my computer away and wouldn't give me my computer back. And I said, "Okay, well, you better arrest me since you've arrested my computer." And they weren't listening to anything. They didn't even take down my details or anything like that, but they never gave me my computer back. That what?
Right.
How can you get away with things like that? It's disgraceful. And they never charged my friend with anything because he wasn't guilty of doing anything. It was because his neighbour had a grievance with him. He never got on with him anyhow. The neighbour that had a grievance with my friend actually ended up dead because he had a brain tumour. But he just decided, "Oh, I'm going to do this because you've ruffled my feathers up too many times now." And that was it. But they were intercepting mail. Things were, parcels, because my dad sent me something down, and it had been very carefully opened, and it took more than 7 days to arrive first class recorded mail from Scotland, where it should only have taken a day. And very carefully sliced open to let the item that my dad had given me out. But my dad had also slipped in some money, but that was all in there, so it was quite obvious what had been going on. Incredible stuff. What a waste of resources as well. Like I said, that this guy, this idiot, had agreements with my friend because he was doing something with, pond plants, and he was using very smelly compost, turning over compost on his balcony bit, which he shouldn't have been really doing, because it was, in some ways you would probably class that as antisocial, but there's ways of dealing with that matter, and phoning up the terrorism hotline to say somebody's doing this and that when you know fine well that's not true. It's not the way of doing it. It's absolutely disgraceful. And now we're learning more about the spying thing going on. I'm sure they're constantly watching people, especially the ones that are a bit more political, that talk. I'm sure at times, I'm not making myself out to be a big fish, but because I'm very outspoken and things like that, I'm sure at times they must be looking at me, just as the standard, he's a person of slight interest. And I don't agree with that at all. I've never had any warnings on Facebook for what I type. I've never had any warnings from Facebook about what I post, because I never post anything gruesome, and anything that I post is in the public ether, and it's not from any dodgy sites anyhow.
Right.
I don't post pictures of dead children or any of that nonsense. You don't. I know you don't.
No.
I'm perhaps more political than you in that way. But I've never had any warnings that you've gone against the terms of use or anything like that. I'm beginning to learn, actually, the ones that tend to get into trouble are the ones that are about 60 odd now, because I know at least 3 people that are around about that age on Facebook that have been given trouble. They've actually been stopped from posting stuff because they've done something wrong to do with the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
That generation seem to be the ones that are the most troublesome on Facebook, which is interesting. Who would have thought it? But yeah, crazy times. Totally crazy times.
Well, hopefully people will start to realize that there's a better way of doing things than sitting around and watching Fox and watching CNN and watching all of these.
Well, CNN are in dire straits. They've been laying off staff like no business.
Yeah.
They really are going to have to change. I mean, I used to watch CNN in the 90s at home, because my mum and dad got cable television back then. And CNN was good. I actually, it was good informative news back then. I used to really respect it because it was good journalism, and at that point, there was a lot more international, because it was, this is CNN, Darth Vader's voice, CNN International, and they were straight to the point. But now they've got this. It's like a really dodgy, glossy magazine, the way they do things. This Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, and the biased side of it is just disgraceful. I mean, why would you send someone like Wolf Blitzer to Israel to report about Hamas tunnels? You know fine well what side that's going to be aimed at. You know fine well what side that reporting's going to be from. That doesn't work that way.
No.
But the sheep buy it and they lap it up, unfortunately. The BBC over years disgraced itself. Even my own father now was disgraced by them, by their biased coverage of the Scottish Parliament. And, my simple answer to him is, now you see why I go on about it at times, Dad, because this is not just a Scottish thing, this is what's going on about many other subjects in it, in a foreign aspect. Of course they're biased, and the public pay for the BBC. It's meant to be a public asset, because, the public pay a TV licence, which is effectively a tax. So the BBC is in public hands, but the government, the state, control it, and they do lean very much to the right. They seem to have a very rosy, comfy situation when the Tories are in power. Not as much when Labour are in power. They're a bit more critical about Labour. Whereas, if you're paying for something as a public, it should be completely impartial. And their management of funds is an absolute disgrace. I mean, because they made a whole load of people redundant a few years back, and they're now wasting millions of taxpayers' money through the licence fee on re-employing these people. You really couldn't make it up. I think the BBC really needs to change its whole way, and I think by doing it is scrapping the licence fee. I'm sad to say, those days of anti, as it's called, are over now.
Right.
They need to fend for themselves in the big bad world, and everyone has to do it, and it's up to people whether or not they want to watch them or not, because they're certainly not fulfilling the way that they used to. That is another thing that has completely changed late 90s onwards, and it's just got worse and worse and worse. The BBC was always respected before that. Not even touching on the sex pests that were employed by them, and Jimmy Savile, the paedophile,
Right.
and all the people that knew about him doing that and not saying anything because they were more concerned about their own career. It's an utter disgrace. Biased coverage of certain topics. The Gaza situation was a disgrace. That happened a couple of months back. Their coverage of Syria, ISIL to a certain extent, has been absolutely appalling. They also love to try and give us like the old style 1950s royal family spin that doesn't work in the year 2014. I really couldn't give a damn about the Duchy having another baby. I really couldn't care about her having another baby. Why is that the main story in the news when there's far more important things going on? There's not enough investigative journalism going on within them as well. You're also seeing good people jumping ship. I really believe that Jeremy Paxman didn't just decide he wanted to retire. I think he decided he would leave because he's had enough. Because at times you saw him on Newsnight and his hands looked tied. But he's like, I don't want to be saying this, but I've got to keep my job.
Right.
Firing Middle East correspondents because they were actually reporting the truth of what was going on in Gaza, as in reporting Israeli war crimes, and then getting told, right, you're back, we're going to put somebody else on there, even though they were the senior Middle East correspondent. What? No. There was a big outcry about that. Anyhow, there was a massive protest during that mowing of the lawn, as we can call it, outside the BBC headquarters down in London. But equally at the same time, there was a big, massive protest outside the BBC headquarters in Glasgow, the Scottish side of it, which was rather inconvenient for the BBC up there because they had the Commonwealth Games going on at the same time. But they didn't actually report that properly. They didn't say that there was a lot of people really pissed off outside their headquarters demanding a change, to the biased nonsense that's going on. And I've just actually looked at the news as well from today. I don't know if you get it in America, but we had the Million Mask March here as well night, with it being the 5th of November, which is our bonfire night. But it's a bit of a tense standoff and some scuffles going on in central London last night. Apparently, according this, and I'm going to take this with a little bit of pinch of salt. At least 10 million were there in London. But I don't think that's according to RT. I'm not sure if it would have been 10 million. That's a hell of a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. Protesters then reached BBC headquarters shouting BBC, shame on you at the entrance. Somebody's holding a placard up saying the needy are paying for the sins of the greedy. Somebody's tweeted underneath that something called Francesco Anon, hashtag BBC headquarters London. Hey BBC, are you reporting this? ? Million Mask March. To be honest, I've not seen anything on the BBC about that, which is quite disgraceful. I'll have a look on their website actually, because this has been a thing that obviously has been in plan for ages. It did happen last year as well. Arrest after Guy Fawkes protest, according to the BBC. Guy Fawkes protest, that's interesting. Oh, you gotta love the BBC's sin. It's been 9 people have been arrested as thousands of anti-capitalist activists marched through central London to protest against the political oppression. Protesters wearing Guy Fawkes masks marched from Trafalgar Square to Parliament Square as part of the Million Masks March organised by activist group Anonymous. 3 people were held on suspicion of assaulting police officers. Anonymous said the protest was against austerity and infringement of rights. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. So that was thousands, according to them. I don't know which one to believe, man. They're both as bad as each other, RT and BBC.
Yeah.
They've actually, RT is breaking some ground now, because they've actually got, right now, on the 30th of October, I think it was, they've actually started a UK national RT channel as well. I think you've got RT America over there, where they've got RT UK now, as well as their normal RT. So they've got one where it's on from like 6 till 10 o'clock at night, where they do maybe some of the stories they don't cover. I mean, I do watch them because they do some stories that aren't in normal news.
Right.
And I do like watching the Kaiser report from time to time. And sometimes Abby Martin, I can't remember her show, but sometimes she has some interesting people on. Oh, did I tell you this? I know Pink Floyd's got their new album out.
Right. Yeah.
I know their sax player for their album, man.
Oh, really?
Gilad Atzmon. Because they played one of the tracks on BBC Radio 2 last week. It's got kind of an Eastern appeal to it, and he was playing clarinet and saxophone. Oh, it sounded well good. It was really nice. So I think I may well buy their album.
Yeah, because I read the one before this one comes out. They I guess they recorded a bunch of stuff for the last album.
Yeah, but their keyboardist that died,
right?
Or piano player, I don't know what we call organ player.
But they had a lot of extra stuff, and they were originally going to they were originally going to put it out as a 2 CD set, one being the actual album, and then another one being just all like the instrumental type stuff that they had, that this one's going to be. And I guess for whatever reason they decided not to, and for whatever reason, and I guess, now they kind of had that hit away for a while, and then it came back, and somebody dug it out again and said, you know what, we're just going to go out on a high note. This is going to be it. And
was working on a solo album. I know that. They're definitely not going to do any tour. He ruled that out. which is probably a good thing. I think, one of the main reasons he didn't want to do that is because the last one they did at the start of the noughties, was it 2003 or something, I think?
I think so, yeah.
He didn't have the same magic as what it were before. He just felt the audience weren't as involved in the same way as the way it had been before. In other words, the magic was gone from it, but I don't think it's the magic of the music hasn't gone. Just the magic of Pink Floyd up on stage,
right,
has changed. But yeah, this one that it played, I can't remember the title of it. It's an Eastern title, anyhow. It's instrumental, absolutely beautiful. I really was, wow, I'm really impressed. It was on Chris Evans' show over here on Radio 2 last week. But yeah, Gilad announced that on Friday. I mean, he's a really nice guy. He's either loved or hated because he's got a very strong political stance. Former Israeli Defense Force soldier. So naturally he's Jewish.
Right.
However, he doesn't agree with the ideology, let's just say, over there. He's very pro-Palestinian. In fact, he was on YouTube. Not YouTube. He was on Press TV last week having a debate with. I'll bring up his name. The guy was a muppet, that's for sure. Just the same old arguments. So you're just a Hamas stooge and all this nonsense. Gilad, that's one. Press TV. Because he suddenly appeared. It was like, oh, what? No, it wasn't that. And then on Friday announced that he was doing the Pink Floyd, and I was like, whoa, I see for this. Lee Kaplan. Do you know him?
I think I've heard it. Sounds familiar.
He's a Hasbara mouthpiece, basically. An absolute, what we would call in UK, plonker. But it was rather interesting. How we can call Gilad a Hamas mouthpiece when the guy's obviously done his time within the IDF is beggars belief, in all honesty. He's a very good sax player, that's for sure. And it's a pleasure to actually have him as a friend on Facebook. He added me actually quite a few years ago. I've spoken to him a few times. He's a nice guy. But yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to that, but I can't remember what day it comes out.
I think it comes out 10th, I think.
Oh, so it's soon.
I think so. I want to say it's the 10th or 11th.
Well, if that track's anything like the rest of the album, then it's going to be an amazing album. Are we winding this down, or have we wound it down, or?
I think it's... Well, I'm kind of wondering with... I mean, the whole overall thing and the whole overall solution, I guess, to all that's going on is the big issue isn't so much, how do you fix basically what's broken, or is there really any solution, or is there anything that people can only do? It's the big things to get money out and actually get people who are actually going to
Proper public
do
service,
something right
that are there to serve the public, not self-serve like what we have going on at the moment, where they just do what they want and then clear up shop with taking looting the public purse.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. I mean, the big thing is all these states, California and Vermont, who said, you know what, we've had it with money in politics, we got to do something about it.
Yeah.
All they need is to get 2/3 of the states, and then it moves forward from there. And all those people were told, hey, don't even bother with Vermont. It's a lost cause. It's never going to happen. You know, don't waste your time. You know, but a lot of people are still fighting, and a lot of people are still. I mean, they still feel like it's the right thing to do, and it's going to be a battle. But I think with a lot of the really close races yesterday, that kind of.
Of course, it's going to be a battle because, unfortunately, the cancer is entrenched within the system. So,
Right.
meticulously, careful in terms of it's riddled. That it needs to be pulled out piece by piece.
Right.
The heart is collapsing entirely, which is going to create a whole untold spell of problems in its own right. So I think
Right.
it needs to be pulled out very intricately and carefully, and rebuilt. Like I said, Russell Brand and Sink, the Young Turks in general, have the right idea that the repairing definitely needs to start locally.
Yeah, because I mean that's kind of where it starts. You can start locally, and then move your way up, to a national level.
Yeah, you're not going to get it. You're not going to be able to get the big fish just yet.
No.
That's impossible.
No, with it being so corrupt for such a long period of time, it's going to take. I mean, you got to start at the very bottom. I mean, you have all these different cities and.
I mean, to be honest, taking the whole anti-gay equation out of Russia, right? Because we know that they've got a big issue there. If we, for 1 minute, ignored that, what would you prefer, the Russian system or the current system that is conducted within both our countries?
Right.
At least the Russian system, you know what's going on. You know the way it is, and that's it. Whereas the American system, the American system and the UK system at this precise moment in time is more corrupt, for sure. It's a slightly different corrupt system that's going on, but it is incredibly corrupt.
Yeah, I mean the big question, I guess, is okay. Well, if you get money out and you actually get people who are running on actual stuff they believe in and stuff that they're going to do, the big thing to do is hold people accountable for whatever their platform is.
I think also, examples need to be made out of individuals.
Yeah. Absolutely.
As a deterrent. But unfortunately, politicians are the most slimiest of eels. That they just slide out of people's hands.
Right.
Blair, the likes are prime examples of that. Examples definitely need to be made of people. Also, educating people on exactly what the situation is and how it may well be solved is a way forward as well, but not in a Jonesy style.
No.
Because that's just going to either make people think, wow, he's loony, or it's going to scare people so much that they're just going to be helpless and think that we can't do anything about this. It's way over above our level to be able to do something about it. I think a strong educating system needs to go through, and yet again, that is local. It needs to start off locally.
Right.
I think also, there needs to be an infiltration of local government by, people that are prepared to do it. I mean, somebody may say, why didn't you get into politics, Colin? I wouldn't want to be a politician. Oh my God, no way. But equally, I don't want to be a silent person adhering to the corrupt system. No way. The reason why I'm more vocal is because of situations that have crept up in my life or friends around me. So it's made me actually just think, well, wait a minute, this can't be right. What? And looked into things, and I think once you open up one Pandora's box of nonsense, another one opens in front of you, revealing even more ghastly, disgraceful nonsense. So eventually you're standing in this room opening up boxes and finding more and more horrible information and facts of what your dear leaders are up to.
Right.
And I think it's been years since I reached that point of no return. I'm way beyond that now. That there's no going back. But I would never want to get into politics. Maybe if the system changed, then I'd think about some sort of way that way. And I'm not, I don't think, to be honest, I'm educated enough in a lot of ways to actually stand in that sense. However, it would be interesting to be part of a party that mattered, and none of the parties that are currently in circulation at the moment. But to be part of the movement to change that for the future, for generation, the generation below me and the generation below them, would be more than enough. At least I can die a happy man to know that I was a part of something that was not violent, that was peaceful, but a movement, and the right movement, in order to make things better for our younger ones.
Right.
But you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
I think just to stand there silently and just let it all go on around you makes you, to a certain extent, as guilty as the ones that are committing the fraud and evil doings. I do understand why some people shy off away from the system and why they're not really that interested, because it's almost like burying your head in the sand. And yes, some people can't cope with it. Also, some people aren't, basically are not interested for various reasons. Maybe they're somewhat overwhelmed intellectually, or they think they are that way, or it just does not interest them. They're in their own little bubble, and that's all they really care about. And so be it. Each to their own. I'm not going to get angry with somebody like that. However, I think when somebody turns around and says, "Oh, why are you talking about that?" You shouldn't be talking about that. Blah 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 blah. That's when I get annoyed, because nobody should be telling anybody what to do.
Right.
But I think if you do actually tell, inform someone that it does look this way, they're doing this and they're doing that, and they shouldn't be. What do you think? Do you not think that's an injustice? Do you not think that's not right? And you actually, it's happened quite a few times. It's like, where did you get that info? Well, I've read about it. It's like, here, read this. Look, and the fact that somebody else will go away and read something and then come back to you and say, "Do you know, Colin, thanks for showing me that. That's not, look what I found." And they find more information that maybe you haven't even found. That's the start of it, and that's when I become a happy man, because it's I don't like to use the cliche of it's awakening people, but in a way it is,
Right.
I think there needs to be more of that, and I think the internet's helping it a lot more. You are getting a lot more people that are doing that. Then equally, you're still getting your crazies, your ones that think there's going to be 6 days of darkness this month and things like that.
Yeah. You're kind of going, okay, hold on.
Or the prophecies, or Nibiru, or whatever, however you pronounce it, Nibiru, or whatever it is. Things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
It's a crazy place.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. Well, who knew? Who knew that we would be going on and on and on for, well, technically for almost 5 hours, but we recorded this thing for a little over 3.
God, man.
We're you know what? I think we crossed into Joe Rogan territory.
I think it is a bit Joe Rogan, isn't it?
You know. But
I listen to it times it's like that.
they're going, holy cow! All right, but
These guys were getting this far. I hope we haven't waffled.
oof. But yeah, well, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe Sybil might listen to it. You know, I might cheer her up a bit.
Well, I mean, I'll, get this all, put together and everything, and probably upload it. I don't know. I'll try and get it up there tonight. See if I can get it figured out. If I can.
It's him over here, dude.
Oof.
I'm not even tired. Might stay up and sleep well tonight.
Right.
Makes sense.
There you go. But yeah, thanks for doing this. It was a blast, and we'll definitely do what?
It was only meant to be an hour.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, well, sometimes it happens. But
how many people listen to your podcast out of interest, anyhow?
I don't really know. I haven't really looked.
Do you upload them to SoundCloud and the likes?
No, I stick to YouTube, really. I mean, that's the easiest one to use. So I might just stick this up there because there's no real limit.
Well, put Shep Sam Neil's a tag, because then that'll come up from my feed, and you might get a few more people listening that way. Not that I'm bigging myself up, but people do look for me that are friends with my old ex-bandmate and things like that. So some people doing that. They'll be a bit perplexed as to why it's a podcast, but
but yeah, no joke. Well, hey, this was a whole lot of fun. We definitely gotta.
Yeah, we definitely gotta do another one. Yeah.
Definitely do this. I'm not gonna say it's only gonna be an hour because God knows how long the next one will be. But I don't think it's gonna be a ridiculous amount of time.
I don't know if you had the crazy one screaming downstairs. Did you hear that?
Oh, it'll probably show up, but it's all good.
That's the real mama from the horror movie. Yeah, she decided to have a little performance.
Hey,
no, she
right.
exists. When I go on about mama, she exists.
There you go. But yeah, I think what better way to wrap it up than talking about crazy mama from downstairs.
Crazy mama downstairs.
It's great. But yeah,
are we still talking after this?
Well, it's just about 1 here.
Oh, it's getting late, yeah.
And I gotta finish some things up, and have a little read and everything. But yeah, I say we should probably do this. I don't know, once a week, once every other week or so, and just kind of go through.
See what I can do. It might need to be a daytime one though, because these crazy nights, things might not work out for obvious reasons.
Right.
But a slightly more daytime one might be better if you got a day off.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we'll figure it out.
We might even have another Scotsman alongside as well for a laugh.
Oh boy.
That'll be an interesting one. The ladies will love that.
Well, I've already, yeah.
I've kind of lost mine now, but at least it's still is polished up Scottish style. So Sybil loves it. So that's for sure. He'll come out with some funny jokes. You got to give him that.
And there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
He won't talk politics though, so it'll be more like a art show. Maybe that's the best thing. I'm going to listen to this. I'm just going to end up laughing, aren't I?
Oh, that'll be great.
We didn't even have any subjects or. I suppose that's the best way, though.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah. Thanks for doing this. And
it was a blast, man. First podcast I've done as well.
Hey, well, there you go. I mean, what more can you ask for? But yeah, I'll definitely talk to you. You know, I don't know. It definitely won't be another couple of months, but yeah, this was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was just chilled out, man.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Yeah, well, maybe somebody might find it interesting, but it's down in the archives forever, man. Well, yeah, we'll definitely need to do another show. Yeah, we'll get Sybil on. We'll have a three-way corner where we just do some crazy stuff.
Oh, that'll be great.
That would be funny. I do miss our laughs with Sybil, especially when we start doing the crazy Disney stuff. That's just nuts.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man. Yeah. So speak to you soon.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, man. Take it easy.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so there you go, folks. That was the very long episode of, I don't know what you want to call this. We've been going for about 3 hours and 16 minutes, so wow. I don't know how this is all going to sound. There might be some goof ups and everything, but it's the first official episode, so there you go. I really do want to thank you guys for listening. It really it's just a really cool thing. Also, this podcast, just like the history podcast, is brought to you by Naturebox. If you're looking for healthy options, if you're looking for stuff that's good for you, stuff that healthy snack options, stuff that doesn't have anything artificial or anything fake in it. If you go to naturebox.com, use the coupon code 129F-YWU. That code will be in the description box below. You enter that in the coupon code at checkout and click apply. You will automatically save $10 off your first box of some really great, just really great, just a really great snack options. So again, naturebox.com. Use the coupon code 129 capital F dash capital Y capital W capital U. Get $10 off of your first box. And with that, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other.
That's the end of my show. Donk.